Gaming news today is all about the unexpected. First, Hollow Knight Silksong Difficulty is becoming a huge point of contention with some users in the gaming community. While the game has a fantastic score on Steam and Xbox and PlayStation, the driver of most of the negative reviews does seem to be the game's difficulty and structure. And I put some time into it, discussed it with my audience. I actually don't think the issue is with difficulty, although I do think there are some things that could be tweaked. I think there's something else that is causing some of the frustration, and it isn't the difficulty. It's related to it. Second, Silksong is making waves in other ways, and the Hollow Knight Silksong Price is being debated by the gaming community. As I expected, some developers are worried that such a big and long game in development, only being $20, is already being set off, sort of making these off-kilter expectations from some of the gaming community, like, well, any game can do this, or that all games like this should only be $20. Third, we have some information about Bend Studio, the team behind Days Gone. They're apparently hiring somebody to work on maybe another multiplayer game. After canceling one live service game, the question would be, are they already working on another one? We're going to take a look and see if we can't figure out what's going on. Now, yes, I have seen all the videos about how YouTube is having problems and blah, blah, blah. We don't need to discuss that because we're just going to hope and trust that the platform figures it out. Very big channels, very big content creators have really drawn attention to some significant problems. I'm going to continue to say what another big channel I saw say. The best way for us to weather these storms is often to have those folks who support the channels directly. That is something that is extremely prevalent in some content creators using Patreon. We don't do that. We like to keep everything right here. So we do morning coffee, we do green room, and we do streams with my wife. All of those are for paying members. So consider clicking join, pick member plus. That way you get extra content, and that way you'll be also less likely to miss out on content if the platform starts acting crazy. When you're a paying member, it tends to help because it's always going to put that content in front of you. That also gives you access to my Discord. So I'm just going to keep plugging that and saying, listen, those of us that do this full time, when these sorts of things happen, we're at the mercy of the platform. I'm just going to keep doing what I've been doing. I'm going to do live streams. I'm going to hang out with you, and we're going to talk about gaming. So make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe, do all those things. Those actually help out tremendously because right now, even a video that wasn't even live yet, this video wasn't even live yet, and it was already suffering from some of the problems that are plaguing the platform right now. But you can help me out by getting us those first 100 likes. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you guys so much for being here. We are we're probably gonna have a bit of a debate today because there are some people who they really think and are unhappy about the difficulty in Hollow Knight Silksong. And I myself, even last night, was expressing frustration in the Discord, and I put a video up on Twitter of a bird fight in particular, and I said, you know, this one is still haunting my dreams, and it suddenly got picked up this morning, and like a bunch of people are watching it and replying to it, and I'm seeing a lot of that. I'm seeing a lot of people go to Twitter and Discords and Reddit to basically lovingly bemoan some of the frustration. They're like, oh my gosh, this was so irritating, this was so frustrating. Like Gene Park was the reason that I noticed the birds in particular, because he said something about like hating birds or flying enemies or something. And then I got to a section with the flying enemies, and I was like, oh yeah, I can see why he absolutely hates these enemies. They're very frustrating. So let's get into this. Jesse Barrett says, Silksong isn't too difficult, you just need to get better at the controls. There are certain move sets that you're not presented with, like the Reaper Scythe, which pretty much turns Hornet into Knight 2.0. Well, I don't necessarily think the issue is even using the appropriate move sets. I think there are things within the game that present the player with forms of tedium. So it isn't like last night I was fighting a boss and we're on this bridge and there's like this old man that can help me with the fight. And it actually is a very fun fight. It's the run back that makes it, I think, unenjoyable. And I'm kind of surprised that they're implementing so much run back. And I actually found a shortcut, and the run back was still annoying. I opened up a door that made it shorter, but I've been told by people that are further than me, like, no, the run backs get worse. One of our members, our community here, Barrier, said that there's an area that's really, really frustrating, and there's one bench in the area. One, right? And so the issue, the giant bird, no kidding, I only died like once, thought it was easy. Maybe because using a sub-weapon. I didn't find the fight to be difficult, but, you know, you make a couple mistakes and you can die pretty quickly in this because there's a lot of damage from the boss. I think he took me 7 or 8 tries, right? Because the first couple, I wasn't really sure what was going on, figured out his moveset, was like, okay. And then I spent some time opening up the one door, so the run back was faster. My issue was not the boss. I thought the boss was fun. I thought his telegraphs were fair. I thought he was enjoyable. But the run back, I was like, come on. What are we doing here? This doesn't seem to make much sense at all. Lono's not ready for the last judge run back. That's the issue, though, is it's like, I think people are maybe mislabeling things. Nitro Fusion, I didn't see this. Han shot first, and so did you. Thank you so much for renewing your member. If you guys have memberships to renew over on Purple, especially, the sub points that you guys helped us unlock, they have fallen because we've got a bunch of people that need to renew. So make sure you're checking your primes over there, especially. I think people are just mislabeling things. I've not been in a fight yet, and I felt like this is too hard. I've not fought an enemy yet and been like, this is too hard. I think there are significant elements of tedium that are frustrating people. So instead of being like, oh, that was crazy, this boss is nuts, or that fight is nuts, you've gotta like jump back in, right? Well, no. You've got to run, go up here, go down here, get past all these enemies, go through here, go through there. By the time that you get back, it's like, oh man, I really, really wish I could have just jumped back in. Even Metroid games have those runbacks. I don't agree with you. I have played Ori 1, Ori 2, Hollow Knight, Sundered. Even recently, I played Prince of Persia and the Lost Crown. Shinobi isn't technically a Metroidvania, but it has a lot of Metroidvania elements. I love all 6 of these games. Never once did I feel like, man, this is tedious. I'm sick of this freaking run back. I felt like they had more of the modern amenities, especially Will-o'-the-Wisps and Prince of Persia and the Lost Crown. I feel like those are the more recent, more modern Metroidvanias, and I don't feel like runbacks were so stinking prevalent in those games, because if they were, I would remember. I would be annoyed. Like, I know my personality, and I loved those games. I loved Nine Souls. Nine Souls is ridiculously hard. It's like a Sekiro platformer. But I don't remember dealing with runbacks like this. Like, to me, with Silksong, I'm enjoying the fight so much. I'm enjoying learning the telegraphs. It's just the runbacks that, to me, are creating a massive amount of tedium. Silksong is good. It's a skill issue. The skill issue is on your ability to listen. Nobody has yet said that I've seen. Now, there are some people on Steam that are saying this. A lot of the people that I'm seeing taking issue with it are like, I love the fights. I love the bosses. I love how difficult it is, but the runbacks are killing me. The lack of benches are killing me. Having benches that cost money are killing me. Like, it's creating flat tires. It's creating tedium. Like, I mean, I beat Nine Souls. It's not a skill issue. That I would argue Nine Souls is probably at some regard, I should say. Some regard is harder because of the way they structured the combat. It's more like Sekiro in a 2D environment. So I think people are using the wrong word. It's not that it's too difficult. It's that they didn't create, I think, some of those nice sort of like smooth edges that make more I think more modern Metroidvanias more enjoyable. Hang on. Joker Quinn with the first gifted member of the day, and a VIP from John Always says double dipping 100. Thank you so much. That puts us at 6. Oops. That puts us at 6 on the week. I appreciate that so much. There are runbacks in Hollow Knight. Right, you're not engaging in the conversation. You're not defending the runbacks. You said it was a skill issue, because that's like the cliche answer when you don't want to engage in the conversation. Surely people are going to summarize my content today as me crying that it's too hard. I will never utter the sentence the game is too hard or too difficult. I don't agree with that. I think that's I think it's a misdiagnosis of the problem. It's not that it's too difficult. It's that there's just too much tedium. I spent more time in 2 of the more challenging fights that I did. I spent more of my time not in the fight than in the fight. It was like, do you want me to fight or do you want me to do runbacks? Like, which is it? The way I described it this morning, thank you, Johnny, always, for 52 months. 52 months over there on Purple. The way I described it this morning in Morning Coffee, I said, it's almost like they leaned too heavily into tropes and mechanics from a Souls game than a Metroidvania. Like, I bought it hoping for another great Metroidvania, and I feel like I bought a 2D Souls game. I feel like I bought a 2D Souls game that is also a Metroidvania. It feels like its identity is more rooted in currency, sunk cost of the currency, pain, limited benches, really, really big long run backs. I'm like, these are all tropes of a Souls game. These are not the tropes of a Metroidvania, at least not the ones that I've played, where you're making tedium and pain a very, very significant aspect of the content. It's often not just a run. There's at least 1 or 2 mobs you have to dance around to avoid going to the boss without a full health bar. Shinobi, I haven't played yet, looks harder than Silksong. Oh, it's not. No. I 100%ed Shinobi. I beat every rift. I beat every level. I did everything you could do in Shinobi. I didn't platinum it because there's like a boss rush mode you unlock at the end that I think you would need to run to get the platinum. So I didn't platinum. I got 100%. I did the hardest rifts. I did the hardest jumping challenges in Shinobi. I'm 7 hours in Silksong, and Silksong is harder. Silksong is significantly harder and significantly more punishing than Shinobi. The Hollow Knight gameplay is fun. However, there's a lot of inconveniences with the mapping and labyrinth type that got tired. That's exactly my issue with it, Lion. The fun factor's going down because I feel like you're making me hack through the weeds to get to the fun. It's like the boss fights feel so great. The responsiveness in the controls feel so great. I feel like I'm adequately punished. I will say, this is a criticism of damage output, and I've seen this echoed in other places. I don't think contact damage on a boss should be 2. If they hit me, if I misread a telegraph and they hit me, they throw something, they swing, whatever, you can make that count as 2. Some of their attacks are even kind of crazy. They're like, and they like attack for a long time. And if you get caught in that, I'm okay with that taking 2 of my hearts. If I misjudge going to swing at them and I bump into them, that taking 2, that seems a little extreme. Like, I feel like that could get toned down to 1. Outside of that, I haven't had any issues with the boss fights. I feel like the boss fights have been phenomenal and fun and well built. If y'all don't like it, don't play. Y'all attacking me in comments for saying 2 small sentences. He said runbacks. I said runbacks in Hollow Knight. Silksong is harder. Okay, that's a good thing. So what we do here is called conversation and discourse. You don't seem interested in that because you came in and just immediately spoke in platitudes, which you're doing again. If y'all don't like it, don't play. Nobody here is saying they don't like it. Many of us were looking forward to this game for a very long time. This was one of my most anticipated games this year. I loved the first Hollow Knight. I love both of the Ori games, right? And I feel like this game has some design aspects that are making it difficult to enjoy. Like when I'm in a fight, I'm in a boss fight, and I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying learning it. I'm enjoying, reacting to it. But in order to get back to that fight, you've created this route of pain and irritation through a run back. That, to me, I'm going to be critical of that. I'm like, I don't think that's necessary. I think the run back is a form of tedium, and I think it ends up making, like, think of it like this. In a play session, let's say you get stuck on a boss in Elden Ring, and you fight that boss 20 times, and you finally beat him, right? That play session was focused on fighting that boss. That's what you did, right? When I fought this guy last night, he took me somewhere between 8 and 10 times, okay? And I'm in the boss fight for about the same amount of time as the run back. Because sometimes it doesn't take very long to die, right? You can die pretty fast. You make a couple mistakes. These guys are chunking, right? That's okay. You can have chunk damage. I mean, it's punishing in a boss fight if you make mistakes. That's fine. So I'm in the boss fight, the same amount of time. So let's say that takes me 45 minutes, right? Let's just say I'm dealing with that particular fight for 45 minutes. If half of that time was spent on the run back, half of my time was spent doing something that didn't really serve a purpose. It didn't serve a purpose. Like I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't, I wasn't exploring the map. I wasn't getting better in the fight. I wasn't advancing. I wasn't learning. I'm just going through the rote, rehearsed pathing of run, jump over this guy, run, jump over this guy, drop down, go to the right, drop down, go to the left. Okay, I'm back. Do you see, like, that sense of tedium and futility? That starts to work against the fun factor, because I'm like, well, you just took half of my play session and kind of threw it away. Now, this to me is even more concerning, because I'm expressing my frustration in the Discord, and Barrier and others are like, oh, it gets worse. There are run backs that are way worse than that. And I'm like, but do I want to do that? Like, in your gaming experience and your limited game time, do you want to work on a boss, for an hour, maybe 2 hours? Some people on my tweet were like, oh, that fight took me a couple of hours. Okay. If a chunk of that time, if half of that time is spent running back, that feels like a design flaw. It doesn't feel like I'm stuck on the boss and that's all I'm focusing on. It's like the cost of getting back there is also a part of my time sink. Me just running through the motions of running through an area. No, I don't think there's any speedrun vids yet, no. It gets worse for a little bit, but Act 2 improves on all complaints people have. Can you explain to me, without major spoilers, like within the story and stuff, what is it that you feel like it corrects a lot of the problems that we're talking about in Act 2? 15 hours is the fastest so far? What at the end of 30 minutes you completed? I'm not sure what you're saying. 809 Line says, I feel the developers are not respecting the player's role with all the runbacks. A lot of them feel unnecessary and just added to extend how long the game is. I think Barrier nailed a bullseye last night when he said these guys ignored the internet for 7 years and they ended up ignoring like basic things that people expect from a game like this. No, I didn't look at the Ghost of Yote Mood trailer. I don't really care about that kind of stuff. It's not gameplay. It's just environmental stuff, right? I hate the runback, says Nib. Yo, wait, is that the Nib? Is that Nib from Twitter, Nib? The Red Flower area had a challenge room that forced me to run through most of the level before getting to it. To me, that isn't respecting the player's time nor fun. I was doing that. I think I put that fight on Twitter. Is that the one where the one NPC can come help you? I loved the fight. The fight was so fun. That's what I'm trying to get at, is like, you put me in a room that's ridiculously hard or frustrating or boss fight, and it's like, I love that. That's fun. But the run back? Why do I have to do that every time? That's where the tedium starts to stack up. Like when I was streaming, I tried to make it comedic. I tried making the run back comedic. I tried to make it entertaining, right? You got this sunk cost. The 7th or 8th time that happens, you're like, dude, is that what this game's gonna be now? Think of it from this perspective. Yes, it is you. Okay. I don't think we've ever interacted in a stream before. We've only ever interacted from Twitter. I'm new here, says the Big Pack fan. I found you through the Lost Soul Aside video. I enjoyed it. Thank you. Yes, I did a video about how Lost Soul Aside seemingly flopped. It's a bummer. I tried to be positive while also pointing out that the game's not doing very well, and hopefully they can turn it around. It is the first game in the China Hero project that kind of had some presence, and it did not land well. And I think that's a bit of a bummer. So, yeah. Anyways, maybe they should listen to y'all and go patch the game and put a save under every boss. That will make it all better. I'm going to tell you something right now. If they did a Stake of Marika or just a retry mechanic, I think I could overlook I think I could overlook the other issues, because I think that's like the main issue to me. And this is how I was going to explain it, Ghost. And I appreciate you just continuing to hang out, and now you're like, hey, maybe they could. I don't know. Here's why I don't think they're going to do it. I don't think they're going to do it, Ghost. I think this is the game they wanted to build. I do. I think they wanted to lean more into the Souls element. It's not hard. It's more of like a classic Souls game. Yeah, this boss is kind of tough. You got to fight your way back here. Here's the problem with that as a design, mechanic. And I think this is why FromSoft eventually relented and did Stake of Marika in Elden Ring. Because you create a gameplay loop that is probably not the best. It's not ideal. Why? Well, what did most people do in a Souls game when they encountered this frustration point, this rough edge? What do they do? You guys know the answer. They would figure out the fastest way to run past everything. So they're not fighting the enemies. They're like, okay, I run here, I roll past this guy, I take a quick dip into this, I go out here, I go here, I run down these stairs, right? So you're not even engaging with the game anymore. You're not. You're not engaging with the mechanics, you're not engaging with the enemies, you're just running past everything. Well, that becomes, I think, pretty degenerate gameplay. It's like, well, what are we actually doing here? Am I engaging with the game or not? Very similarly, last night when I was playing, I was not engaging with Hollow Knight Silksong. I wasn't. I was just running past everything, jumping past everything, flying down, dropping down. Why? Because I'm just trying to fight the boss. That's all I'm trying to do. That's why I think more and more games have pushed back against this notion. They're like, you don't need to make the player run back. It doesn't serve a purpose other than to waste their time. Get good, though. Apparently being bored is a skill issue. That's right. Get good. You're supposed to enjoy the run back. The fastest route's part of the game experience. That's why it exists. It's not time wasting. It's my opinion that it is. Listen, Sam, you can be of the opinion that that's part of the game, and I think the devs agree with you. I think you're in really good company, Sam. I think they agree with you. 100%. They're like, that's part of the game. Part of this boss, part of this fight is the run back. They think that. I remember people saying that about Demon Souls. They're like, no, yeah, that's part of the fight. Yeah, that's part of the fight is the run back. And I'm like, okay, my opinion is that that's stupid. I think that's stupid. So, I'm going to relate this to something I've said very, very, very many times. I've referenced the first Ori game because you can put your little checkpoint wherever you want. And then there's Rayman Legends. So, in Rayman Legends and Ori, there are these moments where the camera is moving and something's coming. Lava, water, something, right? And they're really intense. Because if you miss a jump, you're done. You got to do it all over again. And something that's really fun about those moments is they always put you right back there. And I've always said, a developer can crank up the intensity knob if you're going to put me right back there again. Why? Because it creates this psychology in the player of, I've almost got it. I've almost got it. Come on. And you know this is true if you played Elden Ring, because you would get better at the fight, you would get further in the fight, and there's that moment in the boss fight where you go, click, I see the matrix, you're mine. I am going to beat this boss. There's that initial fog of the fight where you're not really sure what's going on, and you keep making mistakes, and the telegraphs are tricking you, and then something clicks, and you're like, I've got you. I know exactly what to do now. I think you break that cycle, and that intoxication of, I've almost got it. I think you break that when you're like, it's too bad this boss beat you. It's too bad you lost. Yeah, you got to go all the way back over there, and you got to run across this room. Don't fall on the spikes. Make sure you nail all your jumps. There's a couple of enemies that are really pesky. Oh, then you got to drop down here. Now you got to swing over here. Okay, now you're back to the boss fight. You break that entire thing. The potency of that, the intoxication of that just gets broken. And instead of me getting better and more invested and further in a fight, I'm annoyed. I'm like, I gotta run back, and then on the way back, sure as sunshine in the morning, you're gonna get hit by one of those ads. You're gonna get hit by one of those trash ads, and you're like, ugh. Thank you, George Caldwell, for jumping back in with a Member Plus. Guys, use that upgrade command and make sure you're on a Member Plus membership, and make sure you've hit the like button as well. Eugene says the runbacks in Demon Souls and Dark Souls 1 etc are fine because the bosses are generally easy. He says, I don't know if you can say that for Silksong. The Silksong fights can get pretty intense and pretty punishing. I mean, you can die really fast from a couple mistakes. Barrier says the funny thing is there's a boss that you automatically respawn outside of its door if you die, so we know they can do it. Oh, you're saying there's an actual fight where they do that. They just put you right outside the door. Sometimes the runbacks, Eugene, it's not even that they're a pain. They're just long. It's like, you're more frustrated by the length than the challenge. The runbacks are the main reason I don't play Metroidvanias. See, but here's the thing. I don't remember the runbacks in Hollow Knight being like this. Am I completely out of my head? I remember runbacks in Hollow Knight being sometimes a little frustrating, but I remember being like, no, you could navigate, find a good bench location, and be relatively close to the boss. Maybe I'm completely misremembering. I know Ori 1 and 2 were really good about this. Shinobi is not a Metroidvania, but it has Metroidvania mechanics, and it has really challenging fights with bosses. It has really challenging fights where you fight a bunch of waves of enemies. So it's got a lot of similar things that you're going to encounter in Silksong. And I never once in Shinobi felt like, oh, this run back is ridiculous. It's like, no, you always were like right there. The runbacks in Hollow Knight were pretty bad. I've not played it in such a long time, I honestly couldn't remember. My memory was that there were one or two that annoyed me, but this feels like, this is why I don't think they're going to change it. This feels like it is literally part of the game's identity. Is that, oh no, the run back is part of the pain. The run back is part of the challenge. Hang on one second. There we go. Sorry, my assistant coach won't be able to make it tonight. Distance-wise, Hollow Knight and had similar runbacks, but Silksong has a lot more parkour and more difficult trash mobs. I think that's helpful, Sane. I do think that's helpful. I wonder if the runbacks in Hollow Knight, the first game, were less frustrating and less memorable because they were maybe a little bit more relatively easy. Like you could just kind of do it very quickly. You weren't having to like downward jump on balloons like a game in Wipeout or something. You weren't having to do that. I also feel like the bosses in this are quite a bit harder early on. I didn't feel like early on in Hollow Knight 1 I had bosses that were giving me this much trouble. They chunk you pretty quickly in this. Like if you go back and play Hollow Knight 1, are you getting chunked for 2 hits if you bump into the boss? Like if I bump into a boss right now, I lose 2 hearts. Like is that how the first game worked? I feel like that's a higher damage output than the first game. I hate when games waste your time. Definitely not a game for me. I'm glad it has its audience that enjoys it. I decided to play RE4 and I'm enjoying that. Yo, what's good, Ginger? He says, good morning, crew. 4 years from my man, Ginger. 48 months. Thank you so much, sir. And gets us to 9 on the day. Thank you so much. Let's be clear about something. I really like the game. I really, really do. I like the game. I just am like, man, some of these things seem really, really off kilter. They upped the damage to 2, but healed for 3. But they completely changed healing. You could heal for 1 and manage your, like, instead of having to wait to heal, you could heal pretty much anytime you wanted because you would do 1 at a time. So maybe that's how they justify it. They're like, yeah, well, yeah, you get chunked for 2, but all you got to do is like jump over an attack, heal in the air, which you can heal in the air, by the way. I would recommend doing that in some fights. It's going to help you out quite a bit. What does 009 out of 500 mean? Is that for subscribers on the channel? No, this is a weekly member goal where when we hit this goal, my wife and I do a Friday night stream together. It's just a fun incentive for people to renew, gift, like we just had 2 people do. A 5 bomb from Ginger and Wired Rope at the exact same time. They are not twins. I promise you they're not. It is now 10-9 between the 2 platforms. Team Purple and Team YouTube working together, as it were, to do 5 bombs at the exact same time. Thank you so much, Ginger, and thank you so much, Wired Rope. Can confirm, not a twin. They are not. My only complaint with Hollow Knight 1 so far is when I get to a new zone, I have no idea where I am or where I'm going, and if I don't find the map guy and die, I'll probably not know where to go back to get my stuff. Yeah, I could see that. I've not run into that. I was pretty much able to get maps fairly quickly every time, but I'm assuming the harder it gets, that might be more difficult. Like, you might not be able to find the maps all that quickly. Now, here's the thing. Here's why difficult games, and here's why I don't want them to make Hollow Knight easier. Let me just show you something. Okay? If anybody makes a tweet or a video or anything claiming that, like, Reforge Gaming is whining and crying that Hollow Knight Silksong is too hard, that is not honest. That is not true. I am not saying it's too hard. I'm not saying it's too difficult. I'm saying it's too tedious and some of its design choices. And I feel like those things could be addressed. And then the difficulty can stay right where it is. I would be okay with the 2 getting hit for 2 on contact damage on a boss if I didn't have to run all the way back there. Now, this tweet, I think, is why I like when a game is hard and everybody comes together as a community. I said, this fight against birds in Hollow Knight Silksong still haunts my dreams. It skyrocketed this morning. It had like no views yesterday. Now it has almost 200,000 views. Why? Everybody is reminiscing, commiserating, crying, wiping tears off of their face. They're all coming together to be like, I'm glad I wasn't alone. This is so frustrating. I hate this fight, right? It's like, we're all coming together and having a cool moment as a gaming community. And I love that. I absolutely love that. I don't want that to go away. I want us to celebrate. That fight was really difficult. Oh my gosh, I finally got through it. Or that fight was really difficult. Oh, thanks for the tip on using tools or using traps. Or I told somebody this morning, some of the enemies, the sound cue is what's helpful. People are getting stuck on the travel worm guy. And I'm like, you just listen to the sound cues and you're going to know what he's doing. There are cues for certain attacks, and then there are times where there is no cue, and that's when you know what he's going to do. There was a bird with a sword that I was fighting, and his sound cues are the reason I was able to get better at fighting him, right? Those are really fun moments that the community can have. So I do not want this game to be easier. I don't. Just remove that tedium. If you don't want to have a ton of benches all over the place, okay. If you don't want to have a ton of, fast travel things all over the place, that's fine. You don't have to do that. Can I just retry the boss? Can you just put me, like, when you die, just say, do you want to go to your last bench or do you want to respawn right here? Do you want to retry? Like, retry or last bench? And just let me choose. Because some people might be like, you know what? I'm going to go to the bench. I don't want to fight this guy again. I'm out. I'm gonna take off. I'm gonna go grind. People are conflating tedium with engaging difficulty. It's the disconnect. Yeah, I think that's the disconnect. I don't want it to be easier. No, just mod it if you want it easier, but I don't want it to be easier. I like how challenging the fights are. I like the telegraphs. I like the fights. I do. I haven't had a single complaint about that. Now, I am not a fan of the bird's input reading. I think that's cheesy as frick. I think that's cheesy as frick. Though there are birds that input read to the point that I don't even fight them. I just run away. I'm like, you're annoying. The birds with the blades, they just input read. It's not fun to fight them. They'll be like flying, and you'll like jump up to hit them, and they'll go up high so you can't. You'll jump up to hit them, or they'll drop and do, contact damage on you. There was one time where like I went to fight him, and he just kept flying so I couldn't hit him, and I was like, are we fighting, or am I just watching you fly around? Like, what are we doing here? Like, I'm drawing aggro. Come down here, engage in the fight. Do your telegraphs, do your throws, do your whatever. Don't just leave. Like, he just flew away. And eventually he came back down. And I was like, so I literally just ran away. I was like, well, I'm just going to go over here. I'm going to use these balloons. I just went above him and just left him. I was like, what? It's not even fun to fight you. What are we doing here? Again, it created tedium. It's like, it wasn't difficult. It wasn't like I was like, oh man, I really misread that telegraph, or I really mistimed that jump. It was, the dude doesn't even want to fight me. What are we doing? There's a lot of input reading. The flying ant with the spear was sending spears where I was going to be. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the input reading. That doesn't feel like genuine difficulty. That feels like, it kind of feels like you're cheating. It kind of feels like you're cheating. The way I explained it this morning, one second. The way I explained it this morning was, imagine you're playing a Souls game. Imagine you're playing Elden Ring and you get to Margit and you learn Margit's moveset and you're rolling and dodging and you're like, this is great. And you successfully dodge like a 3 attack in a row, like koom, koom, koom. And you're like, yeah, it's my turn now. And you go to swing and he input reads, and he just goes, whoop, and he just steps out of the way. You would call that what it is. You're like, well, that's BS. What are you doing? There's rules of engagement here. You have your attack telegraphs, and then you have neutrals. Those create punishment windows that I'm rewarded with when I successfully get around all of your attacks. And that's what was happening with the birds, is that bird fight, like I would run, I would dodge, I would not get hit. I'm like, here's my chance. He's flying right here. He's in between his attack cycles. Let me jump to hit him. And he would go whoop. And he would just high enough so I couldn't get damage on him. And I'm like, this is idiotic. I was like, you're just input reading. That's not difficult. There's nothing difficult about that. You're cheating. like, oh, the player hit jump. Get out of the way. And it's like, well, what am I supposed to do then? Just watch you play? Am I just here to watch the birds play? Yeah, Elden Ring does do input reading on heals, but generally speaking, I don't know. Maybe I'm not well versed enough. Are there bosses that break their neutral? Are there bosses that like break their neutral, and when they break their neutral, they break it on the healing? Would be my question. Hang on, Stone Spire. I know what Stone Spire's doing, and I didn't shout it out because I don't want it to be ruined, but it's probably going to get ruined. All right? Stone Spire wants a 5-bomb to the first 25 of the week. He just did a single. Whoever hits it gets it. All right? So whoever does it first, Twitch or YouTube, let's see who decides to do it. And then I will owe you a member. Guys, every 25 I gift back. Melania is probably the worst. Oh, so she inputs read. She input reads and it's really bad. Cardock Ren beat you, Joker Quinn, you son of a gun. Cardock Ren does a 5-bomb. And gets us to 25. And right on his heels is an Agent of Chaos from Joker Quinn. And Alex does another one, and that's going to make it 19-12 as Twitch takes the lead and reasserts their dominance. We got to get those sub points back up, boys. We have slipped on the sub points a lot over here. Let's have a big week. We will be doing Borderlands on Friday night. Madam and I will stream and play Borderlands with you guys on Friday night. You guys go crazy enough, we may make that a public stream with incentives during the stream so Madam can pour on the pain. And a 5-bomb from Siriu keeps the member train going. We're now at 36 on the week. A nice, strong start. It's 17-19 between the two platforms. Thank you guys so much. Friday's going to be a good day. Yeah, I tell you what we could do. I tell you what we could do as well. We could maybe go double whammy this week. Yeah, if you guys hit the super stretch, we could do 2. We could do a second Borderlands stream on Saturday as well. I know you guys like those extra streams, so let's have a big week. Make sure if you guys are watching right now, you hit like. If you've never been here before, hit subscribe. We do interactive talk shows like this Monday through Friday, and I am safe for work. So a lot of people treat me like a podcast. They throw me on in the background of their day. We're talking about Silksong being too difficult. I don't think it's too difficult, but people are saying that it is. Super Duper Friday. Hilly's trying to summon a 50 bomb. He's spamming the farty bomb emote. Melania is not the worst culprit. She can be manipulated by maintaining a certain distance. There were some birds that you could trick, like the little guys that would like dive and fly across. You could trick them. You could trigger their dash and just like kind of like jump over it and then come back and hit them, and that felt very rewarding. The big guy with the blades, the big fat bird with the blades, I couldn't figure out any exploits on him. Not exploits, but you know what I mean. I couldn't figure out any sort of like, well, can I use his stuff against him? Can I use it against him? Because he would just input read and get out of the way. Skill issue. Listen, I know the Silksong Defense Force is going to come out today and just type skill issue because that's about all you can muster. I know it was difficult to type that, especially because you added a lot of extra ease. If you need a nap after typing that, I know you exerted a lot of energy. We're actually not talking about skill. We're talking about tedium and elements of the game that could be made better. I don't think anybody here, not yet I've seen anybody saying, oh, it's too difficult, make it easy. I think people are saying, can you please get rid of the runbacks? Or can you please have more benches in the game? I don't think they're going to add more benches. I think it's tedium. Literally said the same thing in Wu Chang. Yeah, Wu Chang Fallen Feathers had terrible runbacks. They would make you sit on an elevator to get back to a boss. You're like, oh, I almost got him. Okay, here we go. Dun, dun, dun. And you're just standing there. Doo, 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 doo. You're just like waiting on an elevator. Like, that's freaking stupid. That's stupid. Let me just get back there and fight. The pogoing in Hunter's March. There's a lot of pogoing that I'm like, oh, hopefully that's only this section. I'm not a fan of that either. Eugene says, I'm hearing that the game is annoying as crap, not too difficult. Yeah, I think from what I've read, from a lot of the Steam reviews to stuff on Twitter, I don't think the consensus is this is too hard. I do think people are saying this is harder than the first game. My opinion is if you want to make the game more difficult, that's totally fine. You got to get rid of some of the tedium. Like, oh, we're going to make the bosses harder. That's okay. That's fine. You can make the bosses harder. Can you please remove the run back then? So that I can just like get in the trenches of the intensity of the fight instead of like running back to him over and over again? Yeah, make it harder, sure. Get rid of the tedium then. Change crest. That is true. There is a crest that will make the pogoing easier because it makes it a straight down instead of an angle. You can get that. But the problem with that is it changes the reach of your attacks, which I had a really hard time adjusting to. Pac-Man on a bike with 33 months in a VIP. I'll be that guy. Hollow Knight should have an easy mode. He's kidding. He's kidding. Chat. He's kidding. Please don't. Like, he's not serious. He's Hollow Knight fans, Silksong fans of the world. Please. Put your pitchforks back down. He was kidding. He was joking around. For the sake of that man's life. He is not being serious. No, it's too late. We're fighting. That's right. The game is fine. It's a different journey. Don't expect it to be the same difficulty. Yeah, I'm not taking issue with the difficulty. I'm really not. When I beat that boss last night on the bridge, I literally said, that was really fun. That was fun. The run back isn't fun. It's just a time sink. It's just a waste of time. The boss fight was great. It was like, yes, I finally nailed the telegraphs. I finally nailed that attack that kept getting me. I finally nailed that telegraph that looked similar to the other telegraph. Like, I felt so good. I was like, man, I wish you wouldn't have made me run back all those times. It would have saved me time. Kingslayer was 16 months and a member plus. Guys, when you see these renewals in chat for memberships and you see they're on a member plus or a VIP, consider using the upgrade command and make sure you're on the same level of membership. It's now tied 19-19 between the two platforms. I love Hollow Knight, but to be honest, compared to other Metroidvanias, the power-ups are incredibly lame. He's not even a boss. Oh yeah, the first brute. The first brute. Listen, man. Listen, y'all. I'm just gonna let y'all know something here. Hang on a second. Here you go. Now listen. If you're stuck on this guy, okay. If you're stuck on this guy, it's okay. It's okay. I was stuck on this guy for a while as well. All right. There is a bench below him on the map, okay, that'll make getting back to him a little bit easier. But if you're still stuck on this guy, it'll be okay. You'll get out eventually. Get dash before fighting it. Yeah, dash makes a huge difference in that fight. I didn't get dash. I just kept beating my head against the wall. I just kept beating my head against the wall. I was like, well, I'll get there eventually. I'll get there eventually. I had the benefit of watching you fight him, so I just started running towards him when he would crouch jump, and it worked out in like 2 tries. Right, yeah, you had his moveset. You didn't have to learn his moveset. You watched me deal with his moveset. That's right. You have to have good distance versus him. Not too far since his jump can catch you, but not too close since he can combo you. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It might just be me, but I actually like the angled pogo better and easier. Here's why I really like the angle pogo. Because a lot of the enemies will dash at you or like run on the ground. And I like using it on them. There's something about going bing, 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 like on somebody like that. Or when they're running, you like do it to catch them and hit them on their run. I like that about the pogo at an angle. It makes it feel more aggressive. Like you can be aggressive on an enemy that like dashed past you or ran past you. You're like, and you're like, whoop, boom, and then you like angle on them. Bro sounds like the ultimate normie gamer. I don't know who you're talking about, but using the term normie gamer and you mean it in a genuine way. What do the kids call that? I think they call that cringe. I think that's what people under the age of 30 would say. I think they would say that's cringe. So I'm in my 40s, so I would say lame. I think that's our word. I think we say lame. Yeah. You would like the Reaper Crest. It has the range, downward slash, and after you heal, you get soaked back on successive attacks. Isn't the Reaper Quest the one that I got? Or did I get the Wanderer one? The Wanderer was the one I think that I got. Which runbacks are people complaining about? With Hornet's Sprint, I haven't had a single runback yet that was more than like 15 seconds. Hollow Knight had longer and more tedious runbacks. Oh, you feel like Hollow Knight had worse runbacks, Weasel? Okay, I got Wanderer, and you're saying that I would like Reaper. Okay. There's Reaper, and one you can get back health points after a heal if you attack. Okay. So, I haven't played Hollow Knight in such a long time. My memory was that there were a couple of runbacks that were very frustrating, but most of the runbacks were not that bad, right? Now, Sane in chat, his name is Sane. Sane said that's not the length of some of these runbacks, it's that the actual mobs are harder and the jumping and the platforming is more difficult. So you end up having a harder time getting back with all of your health. So that was what Sane said, was that it's not necessarily that like the runbacks are, you know, significantly longer. It's that, you know, there's a lot more pain along the way, which I think is probably fair pushback. That like, hey, it really isn't the length. It's that I can't just run back to the boss. I've got to land a couple jumps. I've got to make sure I hit these downward pogos. I got to make sure and jump over this guy or jump over that guy. You know, I think that's maybe where people are getting frustrated. The length of some of the runbacks wouldn't be terrible if the mobs weren't back, but both combined makes it brutal sometimes, says Camille. And I'm going to tell you guys, I have bad news. I don't think they're going to change this. I really don't. I think in their mind, this is the game. They're like, no, the run back is part of the experience. I think that's their artistic vision. And if that's their vision for the game and they're going to stick to their guns, I respect that. I'm like, you know what? I respect that. If that's the game you want to build, if that's what you want to do. But I think you're going to have a lot of people that say, this is annoying. This is more annoying than fun. I'm out. You know? Yeah, I don't see them changing it. I don't think they're going to change it. Barrier says, I totally agree with saying this is one of the worst runbacks. Okay, so hang on a minute. There shouldn't be any major spoilers in this. So we're just going to watch this run back and we're just going to kind of see. I'll put myself up here. We're just going to watch this run back from Barrier. So this is getting back to a boss. I've got a minute-long clip here. Okay, so he's running through that room. Floating. So he has to bait this guy back. And he's got to fight him now. I'm assuming you're fighting him because if he follows you, it's trouble. I did this morning. Oh, you literally used him to get up? Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh, sweet fancy Moses. Now keep in mind, if you have fought a boss 7 or 8 times and you're frustrated, this is you having to do this before even getting back. It's not that bad. Are we watching the same gameplay? He's not even back yet. Dear Lord. Sweet what? Sweet fancy Moses. Sven says, I'm turning the game off. I'm turning the game off. Jack Garland says, this is the first phase of the boss fight. You literally have to replay the level. Yeah. That's not a run back. You're just replaying the level to get there. All the jumps, all the enemies. Barrier says, that was after I found the best path, by the way. Yeah, like Barrier clearly had done that a couple of times. Like he knew the exact best way to go. Come on, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad because we just watched somebody who was accustomed to the environment run it flawlessly. It's not that bad as we watch somebody who has been through the pain of it and he runs it flawlessly. It does look fun though. I don't think rerunning that section after every failure of the fight, I would not describe that as fun. No. Let me explain. Okay? Let me explain. So we know that familiarity breeds contempt. And one of the reasons that these games can have, I think, significant enjoyment even within a high fail rate. So let's say you get to a boss and you're failing, right? And you're failing and you're failing and you're failing, okay? There's enjoyment within the failure because you're getting a little bit further, you're learning new telegraphs, you're learning timing, okay? You feel a sense of progress within the fight. The reason that the run back doesn't hold that space is because the run back is literally point A to point B. Can I get through this without losing any health? You're not learning anything new. I mean, yes, Barrier learned a shortcut. So once he learns that shortcut, though, it's a rote, rehearsed thing. It's just point A to point B. Run, jump, pogo, pogo, wall, 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 pogo, 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 wall, wall, pogo, pogo. Okay, I'm back at the boss. So there isn't some feeling of satisfaction where, oh yes, I'm getting further in the boss fight because, I mean, there is in the boss fight itself. In the rerun, in the run back, how much satisfaction can you really get perfecting the run back? You don't get anything for the run back. It's just, well, yeah, now you're at the boss with all of your health. What if you've already seen the film and you just want to watch your favorite parts? Do you really want to watch the 30 minutes just to get to the part where do you want to go straight to that part? Somebody said perfect analogy. Imagine trying to watch a movie, but every time someone in your group goes to the bathroom, you have to restart the movie. All right, well, we got to start over, boys. And again, I am not highlighting and watching that clip from Barrier to say, oh, this game is too hard. I'm like, that's not fun. That isn't fun. Do you see? It's like difficulty can be fun. It can be. The other day when I was playing this game, you know, for you guys, and you guys were watching me play, and I was rerunning that one fight. Well, the bench was right below the fight, so I'd go out, I would jump up and run in and fight him. It was really fun. It was really enjoyable. Seeing what Barrier just had to go through, that's an uninstall. I'm like, I don't want to do that. That's not what I'm here for. I'm not here to rerun an area that many times just to get to a boss fight. Well, that's the game. Okay, that's me tagging out. I'm going to tap out on that so fast. I got so many games I want to play. I loved Shinobi. I loved Ender Magnolia. I loved Prince of Persia. These are all games. These are all platformers or Metroidvanias with varying degrees of challenge. I loved Nine Souls. I played all these games in the last 12 months. And never once was I like, oh, got to get back to the boss fight. Got to perfectly run this really challenging environment with enemies and platforming. Limited lives before game over was a part of classic game design too, but they got rid of it eventually. Yeah, I think that's a well-made point, Jack Garland. Like, limited lives in a game like Contra or Battletoads was a way of fostering replay value through not allowing the player to continue. Like, that's where the replay value came from. If you could just keep trying Contra or Battletoads, just continue, then you wouldn't have that replay value. You wouldn't have to replay levels 1 through 4 85 times before you finally get to level 5. Prince of Persia did a good job putting you back at the boss. Literally no one has been saying any of that, specifically Lono. That doesn't mean the game is bad or poorly made. Doesn't mean difficulty is a mistake. Nobody's saying that. Nobody's saying that at all. No, I'm not said once that, like, the difficulty's a mistake. I've not once said it's bad. I've said, you're making me rerun an area and it isn't fun. It isn't fun. Expedition 33 added a retry. 2 singles come in from Stonespire. Guys, don't let Joker Quinn ruin this. He always ruins these setups. We need a 10 bomb to 50. Somebody quickly do it. Do not let this man is committed. He every single time he comes in and he disrupts Stone Spire's setups. Somebody quickly, whether it's purple or YouTube, freaking he got it. That's why he changed his avatar to that guy. He's so ornery. 41. He's literally trolling with gifteds. You have to replay the entire game for Prince of Persia Rogue Prince to get every boss, though. Maybe it's different because it's a rogue. Well, I think you understand what you're signing up for in a rogue, though. You know, you understand what you're signing up for when you're playing a rogue. You understand that part of the journey is starting over. Like when I play Returnal, and I was showing you guys Tower of Sisyphus on Friday night. Like, I know when I die, I start over, but you also have to remember something. Replaying Tower of Sisyphus that's the content. That is the content. That's it. You go in, you get new guns, you get new abilities, you get back to power, right? I don't think runbacks on bosses, I don't think is particularly good content. I don't. It's very it's laced with tedium. Does that make sense? Like, see, my issue is in a rogue, that quite literally is the gameplay. That is the content, the rerun, the starting over, the going back to the beginning. Rerunning back to a boss, I just don't think that's good content. I really don't. I think that, and again, nobody here is saying the game is bad. The game has a fantastic score. The game has been insanely popular. We're simply saying, man, it feels like you guys missed some of the basics of like modern amenities in these types of games. And if they cross their arms and they say, no, we didn't, we don't like those things, I respect it. I do. I respect their choice if that's what they come to. If they're like, you know what? We've heard the community. We've heard the complaints. We think the run back is part of the journey. We think the run back is basically phase one of the boss fight, as Jack Garland said. If they think that, I respect it. And I'm just going to respectfully say, I don't think that's very fun. I think you're getting in. I think the game's getting in the way of itself. I do. I think the game is getting in the way of itself. You've designed these great bosses. There's according to your one trailer, like how many bosses are there? I don't even know. Like, I forget the number. It's like hundreds of enemies and some crazy quantity of bosses. It's like, I feel like you're getting in the way of your game. You know? Which is a bummer, because I really like it. I really like the game. I was really looking forward to it. And I give the game high marks and high praise. I give it a very high score. If somebody like made me score it right now, like a review in progress, I'd be like, this is easily an 8.5 or a 9 for me. Very strong score. AOZ says, then the boss fight isn't fun. Confirming I'll be attending Tokyo Game Show later this month. If you have a media opportunity you think I should check out, please reach out via DM. But it's part of the journey. Okay. You know, if... Yeah, okay, so... If every time I went to a place of business or went to engage with a piece of entertainment, this is a really, really good way of establishing this as an analogy. We've all watched TV shows where you get to the next episode and they go previously on Lost, and they show you a quick summary of everything that just recently happened. And a lot of us that are binging will just skip through it. You're like, yeah, I just watched that episode. Bink. I want you to imagine that being unskippable, and a little bit longer. That would be freaking annoying. Couldn't fast forward, couldn't skip. You just got to sit and watch it. Welcome to episode 2. Here's a summary of episode 1. I don't need a summary of episode 1. I just watched episode 1. No, sorry, you can't skip it. You can't fast forward. You must sit and watch this retread. You're like, all right, fine. You're just putting something in between me and the progression. It's like, I just want to progress the story. I just want to do the next thing. It's like, no, you got to retread this every time. Every time you get to a new episode, they make you do that. They're like, previously on Dragon Ball Z. And you're like, what the frick? I can't fast forward this. I can't skip this. I love Metroidvanias, but boss runbacks were never a core part of the genre. That's something from Dark Souls 1. BPM, I've said that this morning in a couple of ways. I said, I really feel like they injected the game with more souls. This feels more like a 2D Souls game to me with Metroidvania in there. It doesn't feel like a Metroidvania first. It feels like a 2D Souls game first. The runbacks make it feel like a Souls game to me. I'm like, this is a Souls game. You've got a currency. You've got the sunk cost of the currency. You got me invested. I got to go back to that section to get my currency back. And the run back is frustrating, painful, long. And you can sometimes get shortcuts to make it a little bit shorter, which I did yesterday. I found like a shortcut, a door I could open that made it shorter. Remember those games that make you watch the cutscenes every time you refight the boss? Oh, yeah. We all hated that. You'd go back to the boss and have to rewatch the cutscene. Yes. It's worse than that because you're trying to solve the problem of the boss fight, but failure forces you to do the introductory dance over and over. Yes. Yeah. Here's my pushback. What if you miss key points? What do you mean, what if I miss key points? In exploration? That's on me to take care of later. It's a Metroidvania. Like, I'm going to explore the map and clear the map and try to get all the trinkets and things. You know what I mean? It'd be like an amusement park where nobody is in the queue for a ride, but they still make you walk through the entire winding length of the queue with all the rails before getting back on the ride again, which only lasts 1 to 2 minutes. Another great analogy from the Unseen Avenger. I love that. That's exactly what it feels like. It's like, can I just come do it again? It's part of the journey. Quit crying. The crying is part of the journey. That's right. You're just like, this is so stupid. As you're running back, you're like, I hate this. They're like, that's part of the journey. You questioning everything and feeling a deep sense of dread and misery. That's part of the journey. Welcome to Silksong, mother. You're like, oh my gosh. Like, I'm glad we can laugh about this. Nobody's being toxic this morning because a lot of times when these subjects come up, everybody gets toxic. It's like, I would never ask for the game to be easier. I would never say this is too hard. Please give us an easy mode. I'm just saying, can you remove some of the tedium so I can jump back into that really fun, intense boss fight? That's all. That's it. I love the intensity. I love how difficult it is. I'm like, let me just get right back in there. My only criticism of the difficulty is I don't think contact damage on a boss should be two hearts. That's the only thing I've been critical of. If I get hit by the boss, if I misread a telegraph and he hits me or throws something or whatever, I'm totally fine with that. If he's in a neutral and I jump at him to hit him and I bump into him, that counting is 2? Come on. The boss fight last night on the bridge, I literally hit him and he falls down and he lays on the ground. And I went to hit him and I got contact damage then too. I dashed a little too far and I'm like, he's laying on the ground. I was like, really? Like, he's not even up and moving around. And of course, contact damage, 2 hearts. Someone said it earlier, if they did a retry, the game would be significantly shorter. And do you think that's a good sign for game length? Do you think that's how games should be? Like, well, yeah, this boss took me an hour and 30 minutes of it was the run back. That adds up, right? Like every single boss, you're adding 30 minutes here, 45 minutes there, 20 minutes here. That's the reason I tapped out from Hollow Knight 1. Backtracking was too tedious and too long, and I love Metroidvanias. SOTN is my favorite game. SOTN. Long equals good. That's what she said. I mean, we call out AAA studios for inflating game length with large maps and fetch quests. Do indie games not deserve that scrutiny? Oh, Symphony of the Night. I'm sorry. That's a Castlevania game, isn't it? I mean, I think Jack Garland makes a very good point. We do call out AAA games that pad their games with stuff that really isn't gameplay. It's like, well, this isn't really gameplay. An indie game padding their game with lengthy runbacks, like, well, we know the fail rate on this boss is going to be pretty high. They build the bosses with an intended fail rate. We know this is true. You know, this happened with Armored Core 6 and Baltius. The fail rate at Baltius was too high, so FromSoft lowered some things to make him a little bit easier. You know, they have intended fail rates. So they know some of these bosses, you're not one-shotting them. It's almost, you know, it's unlikely. You know, the very first boss that you fight in, like, the first Hollow Knight, you could probably beat him fairly regularly on your first try because he just isn't that difficult. So they know what the intended fail rate of a boss is. They know. And they know that you're going to be required to run back, and they know the average length of time it will take to run back. So if you take the fail rate, and there's going to be a quantity of fail rate, you can add that to the average time of the run back, and they know exactly what they're doing. Don't tell me that they don't. They know. They're like, oh, no, yeah, this boss, with our calculations on fail rate, the number of times it will likely take somebody to beat it, how quickly you can run back through this area for the average person versus like low skill to high skill players. You know, on average, this is going to add 30 minutes to the game. Well, that adds up if every boss is doing that. The map is massive. Yeah, the game is freaking enormous. I don't think you need this. I don't think you need to have playtime coming from what I consider to be not gameplay. It's a rehearsal. It's like, well, I've already done this. Do it again. I don't want to. Well, you have to. You can't come up here and fight unless you do it. I like the large map in Silksong, FYI. I just use it as an example. Yeah, no, I didn't think you were taking issue with the size of the map, Jack. I think you were saying we often look at a very large map in an open world game and we would say, you're just doing that to pad playtime. I think it's fair to say, man, it really feels like the runbacks aren't designed to add to the experience or to make the game more enjoyable. It really feels like the runbacks are intended to pad playtime and make the game take longer. I think that's totally fair. I think it's totally fair for people to express that frustration and to say, hey, this doesn't seem to be enhancing the experience like at all. Armored Core, I have a skill asset that carried over from another game, boost maneuvering. Well, I mean, obviously, if you feel like you've got the skills to overcome this, that's not the question. So think about it like this. If I've already got to the boss, I've already proven that I can get there, right? I got here. I've already proven that I can get here. I have the skill to get to the boss. I made it to him. I've already proven I can do that. Why are you making me do it again? It would be like beating a boss, going into the next area, and because you didn't clear that area or get to the bench, they make you refight the boss. You'd be like, well, now wait a minute. I already did this. And they'd be like, well, you need to do it again. Skill issue. Like, wait, what? Like, making me rerun an area that I've already run through. I've already figured this stuff out. I've got the nooks and crannies. I've got the door unlocks. I've fought the enemies, what have you. Think of it like from this perspective as well. So when I was running through that area last night to get to this guy that's on this bridge, I ran into new enemies and new obstacles, and it was exciting. There's these guys with scissors, and they're like running down and running up there, you know, bashing through the floor and the ceiling. It was fun, right? It's like taking me by surprise. And I'm figuring out how to fight them, and I'm getting better at fighting them, and I'm running into more of them. And I get to the boss and I die. And I have to rerun through the area. Well, now, those enemies are not a part of the experience, the allure, the appeal, the mystique, the surprise. Now they're a nuisance. Now they're a nuisance. They're an obstacle in my way. So now, instead of them being a part of the discovery and a part of the skill expression of me engaging in combat with them, well, now they're just annoying. Just get the frick out of my way. I'm trying to get back to the boss. It's like, do you understand the psychology of the player? Do you understand the psychology of the player? The psychology of the player is they want to beat the boss. That's how the game is built. Like, you get to a boss and it's like the music changes, the health bar comes up. You know it's going to be difficult. Like, you're being triggered in your brain. Like, I want to overcome this. You're not replaying levels. You're re-navigating a part of the world that you've already navigated. It doesn't jive with modern gaming. I completely agree. You fought Morwig and Greymore? Yeah, is that his name? Is that the guy I'm thinking of? He's on a hang on. He's on a bridge. Yeah, Morwig. Morwing, not Morwig. Yeah, this guy. This guy here. And you can have like an old man come and help you fight. It's a really fun fight. It really is. It's a really fun fight. The run back was irritating. And it wasn't even that long. It wasn't. But it was peppered with drops where I couldn't see enemies, and you had to get really, really good at not dropping on the enemies and taking damage. And you had to get really good at like jumping over. There was a really tall enemy that you jump over him and dash, and sometimes he'd like rear back and hit you anyway. That run back was irritating. Marginally. No, Sane, you have to understand something. I made that run back shorter, and I made it tolerable. But then Barrier was in the Discord, and he was like, oh, you ain't seen nothing yet. It gets way worse than that. And I'm like, if this is just a foretaste of how often I'm running back, buddy, I'm already done. Like you're saying, I'm cooked. Like, I'm already tapped out mentally. Like, Borderlands is coming out this week. I'll be playing that with my wife. It's going to be really hard psychologically to be like, oh, let me go back to that game that constantly wastes my time. No, I'm not going to. My time is way too valuable. I've got very small windows of time to play games. I'm not pissing it away on runbacks. I'm not. Sorry. You know, he's a tourist. He doesn't complete games. I finished Shinobi. I finished Death Stranding 2. Borderlands 4 is coming this week. I got a backlog a mile long of games I'd like to get to. I've beat a bunch of games this year. And I'm here to tell you, if you start wasting my time, that's the fastest way out. First Berserker Kazan was so fun. You played it on beginner. Yeah, that's a function of the game. If you're going to defend the function of runbacks you better be careful now, you guys that like to misrepresent me. You better be careful now. If you're going to defend the runbacks and the design decisions of Hollow Knight Silksong, well, then you can't take issue with somebody playing Kazan on beginner. It's part of the game. It's part of the design. Can't be critical of it. That would be inconsistent. That would be hypocritical. Listen, I'm being fair to this game. I'm saying if they decide to not make any changes with respect to this, I respect that decision. I'm like, I respect it. It's your game. It's your art. You do with it what you want. I'm going to do the same thing with my time. I'm not pissing it away. I'm not. I'm not playing for 2 hours and spending half of my time running back. I'm not doing it. Not doing it. I've got other games I could play in that time. You know, I've got other games I could play. I'd rather be sitting on my couch playing Borderlands 4 with Madam than getting frustrated at a run back. Come on now. Like, that's what I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with limited windows in the evening, and it's like, I'm not doing that. If your game is designed in a way where I feel my time's not being respected, I'm going to nope the frick out faster than you can say nope. Congrats to the devs. They did a great job. The game's immaculately built. It's beautiful. It will win awards. The review scores are fantastic. That doesn't mean I'm going to enjoy it. That's not a guarantee. There are plenty of games that have insane high levels of commercial success and great scores, and I don't play them. Like Gran Turismo 7 is a great example. Really, really commercially successful game, beautiful looking game, great user scores. I've maybe played it an hour in VR. That's not a game designed to tickle my fancy. And a game that lacks modern amenities and is like, oh, you failed the boss. Here's an incredibly tedious, frustrating, platforming section that you now have to rerun every time you want to come back and fight this boss. Homies, I ain't making it. There ain't no way. My personality, my temperament, I ain't cut out for that. I don't have the fuse for that. I'm gonna blow a freaking gasket. I'm gonna blow a gasket. Now, 9 souls, no problem. I jump back in, fight, jump back in, fight, jump back in, fight. Prince of Persia and the Lost Crown, jump back in, fight, jump back in, fight. Shinobi, jump back in and fight, jump back in and fight. Silksong, you died. Jump, 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 don't die, don't get hurt. Jump, jump, jump across. Do this, do that. Oh, you're back to the boss. Frick you. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I've played a pile of Metroidvanias and platformers that don't do that, and they respect my time. They're not like, you gotta rerun it, man. No, I don't. I don't have to rerun it. I can close the game. I can close the game. And I think that's probably, sadly, this is one of my most anticipated games this year. Loved Ori 1. I've told people to play Ori 1, then Hollow Knight, then Ori 2. I'm like, these are so good. Play them as a trilogy. I was so looking forward to this game. And I'm like, if this is your fundamental design philosophy, then you and I are not on the same wavelength. We're just not. We are not on the same wavelength. Borderlands 4, Shinobi, Terminator 2 replaced and cleared are my most anticipated this year. Shinobi's my next game. Shinobi is just magnificent. It's so fun. It is just so fun. There's way more parkour emphasis in Silksong compared to Hollow Knight, which is putting off a lot of people. Well, and that's where I think the run back is probably starting to really rub people the wrong way. So if you get through an area that had some challenging parkour and you got through it and you're like, yes, I finally did it. Imagine knowing you've got to rerun that every time you fail the boss. Like, again, I feel like that breaks the expectation of, hey, good job, you got through this really challenging parkour area. You were doing pogo jumps and dashes and wall jumps. Man, that was such a good job that you did there. Yeah, that's basically phase 1 of the fight. You got to do that every time you fail the fight. You got to do that every time. My brain just really breaks on that. It just absolutely shatters into a million pieces. I'm like, huh? What? Why? That's why I keep saying I don't think the game is too difficult. I think it's too tedious. That's the issue. It's not too difficult. The difficulty's fun. The difficulty is satisfying. It's the tedium that's the problem. Tsushima was good, I heard. Tsushima's magnificent. I am working on a script right now about Ghost of Tsushima. I'm hoping to have this finished and then recorded So then my producer slash editor slash everything, he does like 1,000 things for me. My editor, I want him to have like a solid week with the content, so then we can release the video like, 2 weeks before Yote comes out, a week and a half before Yote comes out. I want him to have the content for like a week. I currently have like 16 pages of notes for my Ghost of Tsushima video. I'm trying to start doing longer form scripts and longer form videos about certain things. And an idea came to me with Tsushima that I wanted to talk about. I've got similar ideas brewing about Returnal, Expedition 33, Death Stranding 2, stuff like that. Like wanting to just take my time making longer videos for you guys that are not just like quick impressions or, things like that. Are you playing Yote? I will be, yes. You have a haiku of Jin going into the hot spring. I don't know if I'm going to use that. The thrust of this video is not like my own personal impact and like why that one haiku was so touching and like made me emotional. I may end up making that video another time. Like, not very many games have made me emotional, and Tsushima is one that did. Like 3 games, I think, in the history of games have gotten to me like that. But that's kind of the goal, is that daily shows. I've got some segments I need to do with you guys today, so we should probably do that. Yeah, this will be a good section to use. Am I in the way? Let me get myself in the way of the former footage. We'll use my footage here. So I kind of want to talk through this. If you guys ever see these segments uploaded later, be sure to support them with a like and a comment. Sometimes these are great segments to upload later because you guys might miss them, like the one on the channel right now about how Lost Soul Aside seemingly flopped. So let's talk through this. Well, Silksong is harder than its predecessor, and some fans are taking issue with that. Or maybe they're just admitting that they can't really hang with the game. Now, it's been quite a while since I beat the first Hollow Knight, and I want to admit, I am having a tough time with some of the platforming and some of the fights in Silksong, but largely, I have been enjoying myself. Now, there are some sections with, like, the pogo jumps off those red balloons, and it really, led to some salty moments, but there's also been some of the areas with like non-traditional boss fights where there's like multiple waves of enemies. There's one with these birds. I put it on Twitter, and it's kind of pulling numbers right now because everybody is, resonating with and commiserating with me about the fact that these birds were so frustrating, okay? I want to break down what some of the biggest areas of tension are with people, and maybe we'll get to the bottom of this and see, are they going to make any changes? Are they going to listen to the community on some of these issues? Or are they going to say, no, that's the way the game is intended to be played? So if you like this content, hit like and subscribe. So first, I went to Steam and I looked, and I'm like, okay, the score for this game is unbelievable. So hear me when I say that. This game is doing incredibly well, but these were some of the issues in the negative reviews. The first thing I have seen talked about is the damage output from the enemies. Okay, bigger hits from enemies, and you can't heal as often. They adjusted the healing mechanic to where you have to fill it, and then you use it, and you heal for 3. You can't just like periodically use it for 1 if you would like. That's how it worked in the first game. Now, I will say, I've not had any major issue with the big damage output, other than if you get hit while you're healing, it seems to not just cancel the healing, but then also take damage. Many games where you're healing and get hit, it sort of gives you credit for the heal and then takes a chunk away, so the heal's less effective. Also, within the boss fights themselves, I have said, I think doing contact damage that takes away 2 hearts is a little extreme. If I misread a telegraph, if you land a hit on me, that's totally fine. You want to take 2 damage because it's a boss and you want it to be more punishing, that's totally okay. However, if I just like bump into the boss, that taking away 2 hearts, I think is a little extreme. That's really my only minor criticism. Other than that, I have thought the boss fights were immaculate and fun and very rewarding while also being punishing. The second thing people are zeroing in on is the economics of this. They feel like there aren't enough beads dropping from enough enemies. It leads to these awkward moments where they feel like they have to farm just to unlock a bench. There are some sections where the bench costs money to unlock. This has led to some frustration. People are like, man, I finally got through this insane fight. I finally got through this really, really hard section, and I don't have enough beads to unlock the bench. I think that's pretty frustrating. I think that's worthy of some criticism to say maybe you guys should have thought about this, since one of the criticisms are there's a lot of scarcity of benches in the game. Maybe they should have said, well, if you're going to make the benches so scarce, don't have them cost anything. But I mean, again, this is their choice. This is their game. If they want the world to be that punishing, I'm going to give you my conclusion about the game. Is it more of a Metroidvania or a Souls game in a moment? Because I do think that is a significant aspect of where some of the pain comes from. A third criticism I've seen is the using of the tool action. Instead of it just being the Y or the triangle button, it is a 2-button press. That means you can mess this up and use some of that limited resource of your silk, like having to hold up and press a button. As soon as I saw that tutorial, I grew concerned myself. I was like, that's a little bit awkward. What if I just want to jump and then, throw the dagger really quickly? Right? What if I don't want to have to hold up? That makes it a little bit awkward. I think that, again, is a fair criticism. Why can't it just be a single button press? Fourth, some of the criticism that we largely centered a lot of my live stream around today is the dreaded runbacks, okay? This is related to a very significant lack of bench locations in some areas. One of the members of our community even said, one of the worst areas in the game that is super punishing and super hard, there's just one bench throughout the entire area. Also, there's a section where the run back, we watched it this morning, there was a lot of pogoing off of enemies, pogoing off of obstacles, lots of parkour, lots of wall jumps just to get back to the boss. Lots of enemies, lots of potential pain, lots of potential health loss. My question is, why do this again? Now, this is really compounded by the damage output of the boss fights. You can die very, very quick in a fight and you learn very little, which I'm totally okay with. I like how difficult the boss fights have felt. They feel very rewarding when you finally beat them. But I've been told that the runbacks get worse as you go, which to me feels like a significant misfire. That is a huge waste of my time. If I flat tire on a boss or a particular fight, that happens in these games, and that's okay. I think you're going to have those flat tire moments where it just takes you a really long time to beat it. But that flat tire being punctuated by a consistent use of rerun where you're wasting my time. If half of the time I'm playing, I'm running back, I feel like that is a backwards design philosophy. These guys, we know, they dug down for 7 years and they weren't really paying attention to the internet. Well, I feel like they've really missed the boat on modern design amenities like a Staka Marika in Elden Ring, or more prominent locations of your benches, or not charging people money for benches so that they can just sort of explore the game. So my conclusion is this game is far more Souls-like than Metroidvania. This actually feels more like a 2D Souls game that is also a Metroidvania. Like, it happens to be a Metroidvania, but it feels like its identity is more firmly rooted in some of the tropes of a Souls-like. You've got this currency that gets very invested. You've got these very, very frustrating runbacks. You've got these extremely punishing boss fights. All of those are tropes that you more commonly find in a Souls-like, not necessarily in a Metroidvania. I loved Ori 1. I loved Hollow Knight 1. I loved Ori 2. I loved Sundered. I loved Prince of Persia and the Lost Crown. I loved Nine Souls. Even recently, I played Shinobi, which wasn't exactly a Metroidvania, but it had a lot of Metroidvania elements. I loved all of those games. And Hollow Knight is making itself in a way to be difficult to enjoy. I feel like I'm having to fight through tedium to get to the parts that I enjoy. I like the boss fights. I like the intensity of the multi-wave fights. That bird fight was very frustrating, but what made it more frustrating was the run back. I couldn't just try again. You've got platforming and parkouring that is more difficult than the first game. That adds to this issue of the run back just taking a bunch of time. Now, the second thing I'll say here is the devs may respond to this. We saw this happen with Armored Core 6. They felt that the fail rate at Baltius was too high, so they made adjustments to that boss fight. They may say, hey, we're seeing lots of people kind of tap out with the game earlier than we expected, and that's kind of disappointing. If the main rub is runbacks, or the main rub is that sense of time being wasted, maybe they'll make adjustments and just say, hey, do you want to retry the boss or go back to your last bench? That would be an enormous quality of life fix. Now, that could be a pipe dream to essentially get a Stake of Marika or a retry mechanic in the game. Now, I was told by somebody who is further than me, there is a boss fight in particular where you spawn right outside the door. So they do it in one place. Maybe they could do it with all of the fights. The third thing I'll say is, I think there is some valid criticism. I don't think people just claiming, oh, the game is too hard, make it easier. I don't think that's valid. I think they made a game that they wanted to be difficult, and I think that that's totally fine. Like, I don't think asking for the game just to be made easier is something that is a specific criticism, like I did with contact damage in a boss fight, or let's get rid of some of this rerun and this retread. Why? Because it isn't fun and it wastes my time. It's not that it's too difficult. It just feels like this massive waste of time. I also think there is some pretty significant input reading in the game that I feel like is a valid criticism. One of the reasons that one bird fight in particular took a long time is there are birds that throw these blades, and they input read so much that it leads to the fight being elongated simply because they won't let you hit them. I was fighting one outside of this fight, just kind of out in the open area, and it got so irritating, I just ran away. I was like, this isn't fun. You're just flying away from me. Anytime I try to come over and hit you, you input read and you raise your elevation, or you drop down and hit me with contact damage. It just isn't fun. It's not difficult. I mean, I'm beating the bosses in the game. I'm progressing in the game. I'm not like getting stuck and throwing the towel in. I'm saying some of these elements feel very cheap and end up wasting your time to the point that you stop engaging with certain mechanics. If you're just constantly running past enemies to get back to the boss, or you're running past enemies because they're input reading and it's not fun to fight them, I would say that's a failure in the game design, because you're basically incentivizing a lack of engagement. You're incentivizing the player to engage with the game less instead of more. I don't think that's great design, and I don't think that is the whole game. I think it's just pieces of the game. I also think the bench is costing currency. Maybe they should think about that. I just wonder what the choice there was, why you have particularly strong sections that are very difficult, punctuated by a bench that you have to pay for. Well, you might not have any currency if the previous area beat the crap out of you, okay? Overall, the game's score, it speaks volumes, okay? It's largely being enjoyed by pretty much everybody playing it. It has a 96% on PlayStation, a 92% on Steam, and an 86% on Xbox, okay? Even with the game score being a tad lower on Xbox, that's largely due to Game Pass. People are trying the game who might not enjoy the genre, they might not enjoy difficult games, and 86% is still a very good score. So while we wait to see if the devs adjust any of the things that, you know, some of us are taking issue with, suffice it to say, the game is successful, but it is harder than the first in many ways. So be prepared if you decide to take the plunge. Excuse me. Hollow Knight had toll benches that you had to pay for to unlock. I don't remember that. It's been so long since I played the first Hollow Knight. I didn't even know that they did that. I did not know. Again, that's just one of the criticisms of, like, man, I really got through this really, really hard area. Think about what we're saying, right? Like, the rerun and the run backs can be very frustrating. Well, if they're very frustrating and you end up losing a bunch of currency, well, then you got to spend it to unlock the bench, and you don't have it, right? Like, that, I think, is an issue. Now, we spent a lot of time on this topic this morning. There's another topic that I want to talk about with you guys, and it's the price of the game, okay? I actually think this is another good discussion to have. As predicted, the Hollow Knight Silksong price is causing a stir, and it's unfortunate. But successful games are commonly weaponized in what feels like this sort of war of gamers versus game devs, or gamers versus greedy publishers. And while there are certainly legitimate criticisms of big AAA games launching before they're ready, or shady monetization practices, a good indie game being weaponized in the discussion about price or quality is probably not what the developers of that game really want to be done with their game. Basically, this is what's happening. Team Cherry was blessed with an insanely high amount of commercial success for their first game. It sold over 15 million copies. And since their team size is like 3 people, this basically means, unless they're reckless, let's start over. That's going to be a terrible recording. We got to start over. I'm sorry. I got to start over. I don't know why I suddenly had to clear my throat 85 times. Let's go back to the top of the script here, boys. Let's start this segment over, all right? Well, as predicted, the Hollow Knight Silksong Price is causing a stir, and it's unfortunate because successful games are now commonly weaponized in what feels like this war of gamers versus game developers, or gamers versus greedy publishers. And there are legitimate criticisms of big AAA games launching before they're ready, or shady monetization practices. A good indie game being weaponized in a discussion about price or quality is probably not what the developers want being done with their game, and that's basically what is happening. Team Cherry was blessed with an insanely high amount of commercial success for their first game. It sold over 15 million copies, and since their team is 3 people, it basically means that unless they're some reckless sports rookie with a new contract, that they're probably all independently wealthy and they don't really answer to anybody. Well, this allowed them to work on Silksong for 7 years, and they were just taking their time. Why did they take their time? Well, according to them in the interview they did with Bloomberg, they were just having fun. Now imagine being a small team and you're also working on a Metroidvania. You're also working on a game like this. It's a platformer style game. And maybe your game is not as large or as substantive as Silksong. And what if your budget, your operating costs, your team size, maybe the time it takes you to bring the game to market, maybe it's driving you to price your game at $30. Well, it would be pretty concerning that one of the biggest games of the year was in a unique position to charge a price that many initially thought was surprisingly low. Now, I expected that Silksong was going to be around $40. Well, a game dev has spoken out about this. A couple of game devs have actually spoken out about this, speaking publicly about, once again, and then they're maligned for saying this. They're described as making excuses or attacking Team Cherry. Nobody is attacking Team Cherry. These guys are just trying to give you context. The exact same thing happened with Baldur's Gate 3. People are like, that's just not going to be a normative thing you're going to see from a team. Not everybody's able to do what that team did. And everybody's like, oh, you're making excuses. You're lazy, okay? One dev in particular said the following, quote, "As a dev making a smaller Metroidvania than Silksong, I originally thought it would be fairly priced at $20. What should I price it now? I'll be at 10 to 15 hours in the game." It's going to be about a 10 to 15 hour game. They said, "But it was made by one person with limited dev time and funds. I cannot afford to give the game away for free." Now, the good news is there were people that replied to that post and said, hey, charge $20 for your game if you feel that's a fair price, right? People will recognize quality where quality is. I also think, though, with the larger discussion of game prices, it is concerning for smaller teams to be like, these guys just delivered one of the biggest indie games ever for a price point that maybe many of us can't actually do. Now, this is not demonizing Team Cherry, but it certainly speaks to some of the impact that Silksong's price could have on market expectations. It is unusual to get such a large and high-quality game for just $20. Now, none of this means that Team Cherry has a responsibility to charge more or to think of the poor other indie developers. They've earned their respect and status by making a killer game, and it did so well, it set them up to be in this position when making their second game. But I also think it is fair for other indie devs to say, hey, now listen, it's great they were able to do that, but context really matters, and not every indie dev can deliver a game like that for just $20. Both things can be true. You can believe that Team Cherry was under no obligation to anyone but themselves and their fans, while also believing that the market should not expect this to be the norm. In fact, all of the stats surrounding Silksong show this is an anomalous game. The reason we're even discussing it is because it's breaking trends. It's not doing what you would expect. So just like when I said Expedition 33 should not be weaponized in some mythical war against AAA games and AAA companies, don't weaponize Silksong in some other weird fight. Let's just enjoy and celebrate games that do well. instead of turning them into some kind of talking point weapon. Because, listen, I, for one, I'm enjoying Silksong. I've got some of my issues with it. But, listen, I'm going to willingly buy indie titles that might be smaller. Maybe they might cost more, because to me, there is no one-size-fits-all approach to any of this. So let's celebrate the games that deserve it and stop using them as weapons in some weird fight. All right, so what do you guys think about this one? This is a completely different discussion. So what do you think about this sort of notion that, like, people are basically weaponizing Silksong? Hang on, not too difficult. It's too tedious. Silksong Price controversy. See my last. Hilly said the $10 extras for no runbacks. All the more reason these companies need to cut employee numbers. Tons of bloat in these companies to make budgets skyrocket. Some of the best games that have come out in the last year or two are AA and better than a lot of AAA. You're not even engaging in the discussion, Solemn. These are indie devs with small teams saying this is really going to harm expectations if people think that everybody can do that. AAA companies aren't saying this. It's small teams that are saying this. There's a guy that's like, I've been working by myself. He was like, and my game's not going to be as big as Silksong. If I charge $20, are people going to be upset that my game's not as big as Silksong? Like, AAA companies are not coming out and saying that this is a problem. That, quite literally, the indie devs, the small teams, are like, we can't do what Team Cherry did. I thought there was a really, really good and poignant thing said here. Let me pull it up and let me show you here. Okay, so this is where I get tired of the weaponization. Like, everything gets weaponized in some weird frickin' fight where, like, everything is us versus them. So the tweet here says, Game of the Year right here. Silksong being only $20 should be a huge wake-up call for the entire gaming industry, right? Sweeping us versus them language. This person says, wake-up call? What does this even mean? Game development is not a one-size-fits-all situation. If every other studio followed Team Cherry's example, then they would not hire more staff, partly rely on crowdfunding, increase prices for sequels by 33%, take 7+ years. Like, not everybody can do that. Take 7 years just because you're having a fun time, not hire anybody, not expand. And they did raise their price. Now you're like, oh, it only went from 15 to 20, but they still did. Like, that's the point, is like, if you think that's the one size fits all for development, I don't think it's weaponizing for pricing games fairly. What do you think pricing games fairly means, though? That's subjective. There's no such thing as fair and unfair. There are game prices, and then if the market buys it, the market buys it. Like, there was no fair or unfair with Mario Kart. There was no fair or unfair. It was $80 and people paid for it. Crowdfunding, they had backers, Eugene. That's why they didn't do review access. They had crowdfunding. That's why they didn't do review access. They didn't want their backers to feel stiffed. So they 100% did crowdfunding. Oh, are you laughing at the fact that they did crowdfunding? Oh, you're laughing at the fact that they did crowdfunding. Yeah. That's another thing that happened here. It was like, well, Baldur's Gate 3 did something similar, right? They did early access, which was essentially a form of crowdfunding. And it was just like, you want everybody doing that? The question is, fair to who? Is it fair to people's work to sell for less than it's worth? They ask consumers to pay for development. Like GTFO. It's pretty interesting that they did that, Eugene, given that they sold 15 million copies of the first game. Like, I don't get that at all. How do you sell that many copies of your game and still ask for crowdfunding? Maybe the whole, like, low price for games and people celebrating low prices for games isn't all it's cracked up to be if a game that sold 15 million copies still had to do crowdfunding. The crowdfunding was for Hollow Knight and DLC. It was not for Silksong. I don't understand. So what exactly did they crowdfund for? Because the first Hollow Knight sold so incredibly well. How in the world why would you need crowdfunding? Oh, it was just for the original game? Then why do they feel like Silksong shouldn't have review copies? If there weren't people that crowdfund. Oh, Silksong was going to be DLC. Okay, now I understand. So people were crowdfunding Silksong as a DLC for Hollow Knight. It grew into more, and they felt like they wanted to honor those people and not do review access. Okay, no, that makes sense. Okay, that makes perfectly good sense. Okay. Yeah, then that's not as big of an issue. I mean, I don't care if somebody wants to do crowdfunding. That doesn't bother me at all. It's just, again, I think it speaks to there's not a one-size-fits-all approach here. Every team size, every project, every budget is going to be different. And this is why I've told people, if you think everybody can do what Expedition 33 did or what Team Cherry did, I just really think we need to stop weaponizing games in some weird debate. That's not why these teams made these games. They're not meant to be weapons in your weird us versus them fight. You know what I mean? Hollow Knight was very successful. Oh, sorry, I already read that. Their income, 825 million AED before Steam and other platform cuts, says Behemoth. People are just jealous of their success. Team Cherry are rock stars right now. They are basically the veteran saints of gaming. What? What are you saying? No one's jealous of their success. I didn't see any indies that were jealous of their success. They said, this is amazing. They said, this is great for indies. This is great for Metroidvanias. But we can't do what they did. If you expect every indie title to sell their game at 20 or 30 bucks and be the size and scope of Silksong, I think it's fair to say, hey, not every indie Metroidvania for 20 bucks is going to be like that. I think that's fair. They're not hating. They're not jealous. Listen, they're doing exactly what people want developers to do, are they not? They're setting expectations. They're not hyping you up. They're not lying to you. They're not misleading you. Like, for goodness sakes, gamers need to make up their dadgum minds. What do you want? Do you want them to be honest and let you know the reality of what's going on, or you want them to sell you a bill of goods? Like, make up your mind. If developers are going to walk into the market and say, that's incredible they were able to do that, that's not normal. That's not normal. The average developer isn't going to be in a situation like that. They're totally hating. They sold their game for a good price. You're just speaking in platitudes now. You're not engaging in the discussion. You're like, oh no, they're totally hating. Yes, praising the game's success and saying, hey, not everybody can do that is not hating at all. That's not hating in the least. Would you be okay having a smaller dev to complete a game? Your question doesn't make any sense. What do you mean? Rambling Entertainment with 2 months of members says, the audience is pointing to good games at good prices. Peak, Expedition 33, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Hades 2, Baldur's Gate 3, each of them sold with value to the consumer. Sure, and I bought Death Stranding 2 at full price, and I feel like I got great value as well as a consumer. I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all. I don't think games should be weaponized against other games or other studios. Rambling Entertained. Sorry, yeah, Rambling Entertained. Yes, it is. It's their game. They could give it away for free if they want. Well, now you're shadowboxing. Nobody is saying that Team Cherry had an obligation to charge more. Other developers are saying, hey, it's great they were able to do that. Not everybody is going to be able to do that. Not everybody has a 3-person team with a game that sold 15 million copies and can take 7 years to build their sequel. That's all people are saying. Again, I'm going to come back to it. Do you want developers to speak straight with you like an adult, or do you want them to lie to you? That's not a false dichotomy. That's what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with indie studios and developers, and the one guy was a one-man team. He's developing by himself, and he's just speaking straight with people. He's like, my game's not going to be that big, and I was going to charge $20. Are people going to look at my game sideways and be like, well, you're no Silksong? Like, I would rather have a developer shoot straight with me and talk to me like I'm an adult and say, look, man, that's not realistic. Not every studio can do that. Not every studio can sit on a treasure chest of cash and spend 7 years on a game and only sell it for $20. There's a lot of studios that will never, ever be able to do that. We talk indie studios and games. It is certainly as much different conversation than larger studios. With indies, so many factors are directly linked to what they have to price the game. I have not invoked once AAA. Nobody in this conversation has invoked AAA. What sparked this conversation were other small teams saying, good gracious, that's really going to make things hard on us because we can't do that. They're not saying they shouldn't have done it. They're not creating imperatives. They're not saying that there's some kind of an obligation on Team Cherry to not do that. They're absolutely not doing that. They're saying the average developer can't do what this team did. Are lazy devs complaining about Silksong selling for $20? But no, you're doing what you've been doing most of the morning here, and you're speaking in platitudinous nonsense that's intentionally exaggerated to probably spark a reaction. No, there are not lazy developers complaining about the game being $20. There are developers being honest with the public and saying, not everybody can do that. Not everybody can do that. These guys sat on a war chest of money and took 7 years to build this game. The average studio of small size is not in that position to just be like, well, we're independently wealthy. We can just take 7 years and build this insanely massive game and only sell it for $20. That is not realistic. It isn't. Like, these people are pouring their blood, sweat, and tears, and some of these guys are pouring everything they've got, every red cent they own, into building a game, and they're like, I can't compete with that. People need to know that that is not representative of what indie studios can do. It isn't. Dude, I've been playing indie games for a very long time, and Silksong is anomalous. It is absolutely not the norm. It isn't. To spend $20 and get a game of this size and scope and substance, there's just no. 7 years? Lost my green, back now. Welcome back, D, with the Member Plus. We're at 42 members on the week. Friday night's going to be a Madam stream with Borderlands. Listen, we'll do a double header if you guys hit the stretch goal this week of 750. So you guys got to hustle. You want to end the day on 100. They didn't have a business to run and a company support. Just 3 dudes who had everything they needed plus just some chilling. Yeah, they were just having a good time. They were just having a good time. And listen, good for them. They shouldn't be demonized for being successful. They shouldn't be. You know what I'm saying? Like, they should not be demonized for being successful. Nobody's saying that, like, Team Cherry shouldn't have done this. Hello Games and Team Cherry seem to be outliers, but they're making waves in the gaming market. Right. Let's just examine that for a moment. So, teams of this size are there's a high amount of abundance of these teams, right? There are lots of AA games. There are lots of small teams out there, right? Lots of small teams out there. And in general, none of them have this level of success. They don't have this level of success. The level of, like, No Man's Sky success where, like, Hello Games can literally just support the game and never charge a dime. Like, there are so many studios that are that size that can't do that. There's just no way. There's a litany of studios the size or slightly larger than Team Cherry, and they absolutely can't do what Team Cherry did. They can't. They can't work for 7 years and sit on a treasure chest of funding that came from their first game and just take their time and sell their new game for 20. Do you want better games or not? If you do, stop calling stuff like Silksong, Expedition 33, Baldur's Gate 3, Black Myth, Wukong outliers and exceptions, or saying other devs don't have to try to reach those heights. Yeah, but again, you're shadowboxing. You're not engaging in conversation. You're not. I don't actually think you're here to engage in good conversation. I don't think you're here with the intent to have a good conversation with people and a good discussion. I don't think you're worth our time. I think you're just here to be contrarian. No one has yet said that, well, these are outliers and exceptions, therefore nobody should try to reach these heights. We're saying these are outliers and exceptions, therefore you cannot expect this to be normal. You cannot expect every 3-person team, every 10-person team to do this. It's not possible. It doesn't work within the confines of reality to expect every small team to pull this off. It just isn't realistic. Nobody is saying we should expect low quality. We're saying Silksong is at a size and a substance that is represented by 7 years of development and basically unlimited funding because their first game did so incredibly well. And other indie studios are like, we are not in that position. Our $20 game isn't going to be Silksong. I think it's totally fair for developers to say, hey, we're shooting straight with you. Our $20 game is not going to be Silksong, and we need you to know that that's just not realistic. We can't do it. We can't. I'd rather a dev shoot straight with me and tell me that. And I don't think anybody would expect that anyway. If you expect that, I think you're being ridiculous. Like $20 and you expect a game to be at that level of quality every time? That's out of the question. I love the way you call out bad argument techniques rather than going down the rabbit hole of bad arguments. It's very cathartic. I've hit a point where if certain things come into the chat, I'm walking it out. I'm kind of done with the whole, like, you got me last week. You baited me into some bad faith discussions, and now I'm like, you know what? I'm going to protect my peace and protect this chat. You don't get a foothold here. It isn't worth our time. It's like, listen, weaponizing these games and demonizing other studios, I think, is absolutely done in bad faith. It's meant to drive rage and anger. It's a totally fallacious way of arguing. I have not seen a single person with a shred of credibility saying, well, I want to be lazy and I don't want to make a good game, or they come and they say we should expect bad games. Nobody is saying that. I don't see anybody arguing that. Nobody's attacking Team Cherry. Nobody's defending laziness. The same thing happened with Baldur's Gate 3 when a developer had the audacity to say that's a real unique situation. Like, they had an established IP with a lot of baked-in loyalty. They basically were crowdfunded through early access. They've got a mountain of institutional knowledge. It's going to be rare to see that from another studio. That's going to be rare. That just isn't something that you're going to see happening left and right in the industry. It isn't. If a restaurant sells a great steak for $20, do you think another restaurant that sells steak that's not good for $30 will be successful? You're not engaging with the argument in good faith either. You're setting up a terrible analogy. Nobody is saying that. Nobody. If there was a guy who owned his own butcher shop and he opened up a little restaurant, and he was able to sell you fresh cut, like farm to table ribeye for $40, that doesn't mean every mom and pop shop can afford to do that. They might not have the means of production to charge you that much money. The mom and pop shop might be like, we can't do that. We're going to get murdered on the margins if we do what that guy's doing. He's in a unique situation. He's got his own butcher shop. He's got his own cows. He's got his own farm. He is in a significantly advantageous position to bring you a price that we cannot bring you. That's what these indie developers are saying. Nobody is saying you should expect to pay more for less. They're saying these guys are giving you an absolute bargain. They're giving you 7 years of like passionate, really, really high volume, high value development for $20, and other studios are not in a position to do that. You know, other studios are not in a position to do that. Games are not steak, though. You can only experience a game once, and they're different. Paul, your level of intelligence is way too high to pedantically slice up that analogy like that. Like, that right there is remarkable coming from you. Games are not steak. You understand the analogy. I'm setting up a price point based off of the advantage of the man that owns the butcher shop and the cows. I'm not talking about the steak, Paul. I'm talking about that guy has an advantage that allows him to lower his price. Understand the analogy, for Pete's sakes. What in the world, brother? I was not talking about the actual item you're purchasing. I'm talking about when you're in a particular market advantage to lower your price, that's not indicative of the market at large. It isn't. It's more pushback about the original 20 versus 30. That first example that guy gave was terrible anyway. The point that we're making is Team Cherry does not represent the market at large. They would be on my side in this debate. They would say, you can't go to every 3-person team. You can't go to every indie developer and expect this. We were in a unique situation. I think they would agree with me. They'd be like, don't use our game as a weapon or some like expectation barometer to be like, well, every indie game should be like this now. People are hurt by your opinion. Come on, they were having money to support themselves for years, and we're still doing good, over $200 million in profits. People who are saying that Silksong is well priced, it means that any game you have ever bought and enjoyed on release was overpriced. Reforge, that would be true if the success hadn't been replicated several times this year. Peak, Repo, Schedule 1, Blueprints, Expedition 33 Rematch, Deltarune. You know what's remarkable about that list of games? I have a list of games the size of Mount Everest from similar sized teams that have utterly failed. You lose that debate every time. You've already lost that debate. It is far more common and more normal for small teams and small games to just disappear into obscurity. Go look at the number of indie games that hit Steam every day, every week, every month. And you're like, well, there's this handful of games that went viral, like Peak and Repo and Schedule 1, largely went viral because of streamer culture, not because those games were like on their own striking while the iron was hot and made a right call. They literally got the Among Us treatment. Are you going to argue that Among Us is demonstrative of what can happen with an indie title because a PewDiePie and another streamer like did some streams and did some stuff with Among Us and go and they explode and like everybody talks about them? There are way more games from small studios, indie studios, that never see the light of day and never see profitability and probably close up shop and disappear into obscurity because there are so many games coming out. A handful of breakout hits. Also, are you going to argue that Peak, Repo, and Schedule 1 are at the size, quality, and substance of Silksong? I wouldn't. Repo and Schedule 1 are like very low quality basic games that just struck a chord with people. They're not at the size and scope and substance of Silksong. Yes, you're dreaming if you think that Repo and Schedule 1 are at the degree of quality, size, and substance of Silksong. You've played them, then your ability to assess the quality and substance of a game is not one that I would respect or trust. I think you're way out in left field on this. I wouldn't come for your input on any of this stuff. Because if you think Repo and Schedule 1 are equal to the size and the scope and the substance of Silksong, your ability to assess these things is very faulty. They're not even in the same league. Not even remotely in the same league. You've not played them? Yes, I have. Yes, I have. I've played both Repo and Schedule 1. They're not in the same ballpark as Silksong. Not even close. They're not even close. These are silly streamer games. AOZ with a membership, 37 months in a VIP. He says, Silksong is a great game, but if every developer decided to make a 2D side-scroller pixel art game for $20, it wouldn't work. The game is a right fit for the current genre distribution. Thank you so much, AOZ. Let me bump the line to 43. I didn't mean to skip over that. Thank you so much. Repo broke my E key. Did someone say he didn't even play them? Yeah, I played both of those games. I have nothing against Repo and Schedule 1. To say they're equal to the size, the scope, and the substance and the quality of Silksong, you're dreaming. You're absolutely dreaming if you think that that's true. And you're like, well, it's subjective. Well, come on. Look at the games themselves. Look at the quality they're delivering. Silly streamer games. You think the devs made the games with streamers in mind? Repo, maybe. Peak, maybe. Yes. I think co-op rage games are 100% designed with streamers in mind. Yes. Yeah, I don't know about Schedule 1. I think Schedule 1 is one of those unique virality moments where everybody's like, this game is so fun and so addicting. But I definitely think that games like Repo and Peak 100% are trying to tap in to the streamer game thing that Among Us did. Among Us struck a chord with streamers and they literally canceled their sequel. They were working on a sequel at the time that Among Us went viral. Also, you got to remember that Among Us went viral not just because of streamers, but because of COVID. Like, everyone was stuck at home and like, oh, this is a fun game I can play with my friends. Like, people were literally getting laptops that were just barely strong enough to run Among Us because everybody wanted to play Among Us. And yes, 100% Chained Together and Repo and Peak, these games are 100% designed with streamers in mind. Like, nobody is going to Steam looking for a game like Up, Getting Over It, Chained Together. These games are designed with that in mind. 100%. Peak is $8, Repo is $10, not $20 or $30. Yeah, they're not even priced at the same as Silksong. Even they know their games aren't at that level. Goodness gracious, people were saying that Silksong could have been $40. To argue that Repo and Peak and Schedule 1 are equal to the quality of Silksong is insane to me. Even the people that before we knew the price of Silksong, people were like, oh yeah, it could easily be $40 based on what we had seen. Nobody was looking at Steam with the original Hollow Knight. I don't know the history of Hollow Knight sales, what led to it selling well. I really don't. So Von Raz, I missed this. I want to go back and read this. He says, why are people all bent out of shape because a small number of passionate people develop something that the team 5 times teams haven't been able to replicate? Bro, be happy for people like this because it shows what passion and hard work can bring. In the sea of microtransactions and poor optimization, the exception... Oh, sorry, not the exception is the rule. Here's the thing, though, Von Raz. I actually would argue that Prince of Persia and the Lost Crown was a larger team, probably a larger budget, and it was a very, very high-quality game. I don't know the number of people that worked on Shinobi Art of Vengeance, but it was probably more than Team Cherry, and it could have been a larger budget. I don't know. But I would say those games are excellent, and I don't even know what those ones cost. I don't think they were $20. I don't think Prince of Persia and the Lost Crown was $20. I don't think Shinobi Art of Vengeance is $20. Again, nobody's mad. I don't think anybody's mad. Or this is something that really irritates me in these conversations, is that people will inject language that nobody's using, and then that becomes the discussion. So a developer very calmly walks out and says, this is amazing that this is happening, but like, this puts me in a rough spot. Like, my game isn't going to be that size. I was going to charge $20. What am I supposed to do now with my price point? And once it get filtered through the idiocy of Twitter and the stupidity of headline hunting, and I got to get clicks on my stupid blog so I make my AdSense budget for the month, what's it get turned into? People are attacking Team Cherry. Lazy devs are complaining. And now this is how the conversation is framed. Exhausting. Just absolutely exhausting. I'm too old for this. I can't do it. I can't do it. It doesn't matter what the game is. It was Expedition 33. It was Baldur's Gate 3. And now it's Hollow Knight Silksong. It's like we let people frame the discussion with utter idiocy because it's like nobody wants to just like, oh yeah, these guys are being pretty honest. These guys are just being honest. They're like, hey, man, that's great they were able to do that, but the rest of us can't do that. We're out here trying to make it. We're trying to make it. I mean, we can't do that. No one's mad, but people are disrespecting hardworking people who aren't in the exact same situation as another game dev that blew up. Yeah, I think that's the opposite. I think the people that aren't in Team Cherry's position, they're the ones that are getting kind of like, you know, attacked, as it were, misrepresented, demonized, whatever. I'd like to think that sometimes people in chat or the discussions are just pretending to be stupidly ignorant, but that would require me to be foolish myself. I don't think that's what it is, Misery. I think the conversation gets framed by hyperbole on Twitter and headlines. No one here wants to admit it, but a lot of the times the way they enter these discussions, their mindset has been framed by a headline somewhere. They're like, well, I saw people were attacking Team Cherry over the price. Nope, false. That's a clickbait thumbnail or a title for a video that you saw. That has not happened. I went and I read what had been said. And I was like, this developer is being very reasonable. He's being very reasonable. He's like, I'm by myself. My game is nowhere near that size. I was going to charge 20. My game's not as good as that game. What in the world? People are going to look at my game and be like, yeah, $20 for your game? Are you freaking kidding me? I think it's fair to say there are some games that are blessed to over-deliver on value to dollars. That doesn't mean every studio can do that. Think of it this way. Have you ever been in a sales position? Imagine you're in a sales position. And imagine 1 month, a guy comes in and says, I need to activate 20 new phones. I got a fleet of vehicles. We're switching providers, and you get 20 new activations. Let's say this guy comes in on the last day of the month, and you're like, oh, this is great. Commission's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. He pads your numbers by 20. It's a unique situation. It's a blessing to you. Would you like it if your boss came to you and said, hey, you did such a great job last month, that's now your quota? You'd be like, what the huh? Wait, no. That's not just. That's not fair. What do you mean? I got 20 extra lines on the last day. That's not happening every month. It was unique. It was unique. That's not going to happen every month. I'm not going to be able to hit that quota. That's what people are doing with Hollow Knight Silksong. You got a team uniquely blessed with an insane amount of money, an insane amount of cash flow, and they're able to deliver a game at a super small price point, and people are like, oh yeah, that's what we should be able to expect from AA games, and indie studios are like, no, we can't do that. Been forgetting to do this. Work's been busy. Yo, it's good, Neffits. Let's explain real life commission situations. Oh yeah, 100%. There are sales environments that do that. Definitely. Where is that customer? My example was very easy to use. It happened to me once. It did. I had a guy come in and he activated like 20 lines. It was amazing. It was a great month for me. Now, thank goodness my manager wasn't a buffoon that came to me and said, hey, good job. We expect that from you every month now. I'd have been like, man, get the frick out of here. That's not reasonable, and you know it. That's not even realistic. You know why I had 20 extra sales. It was because one customer came in and did that. And obviously that didn't happen the next month. It didn't happen ever again in all of the years that I worked there. I was at AT&T for 5 years. That happened to me one time. Once. It was anomalous. It was the exception to the rule. It was not a common occurrence. You weren't walking in the door, every month. There wasn't some customer walking in the door every month like, I need 20 lines. You're thinking in terms of what's fair. The average consumer doesn't care about what they... No, I'm not thinking in terms of fair. I used fair in the analogy with my manager. I've not once invoked fair. I've talked about what's realistic. I've talked about what is realistic. It's not realistic to expect every small developer, every small team, every indie title to do this. I don't think it's realistic at all. Yes, the consumer has limited funds and is going to come to the market and say, I need to extract value. Who's going to give me the most value? Right? That's 100% fair. That's what you're supposed to do as a consumer. Like that's your responsibility to owning your engagement, owning your output of revenue and your spend. That's what you're supposed to do. I'm just calling on people to be realistic. Like if a developer walks out and says, I'm a one-man team, I can't do that, but I've got to be able to charge $20 for my game. That's what the budget allows. If somebody comes out and says, we're a 10-man team, we've worked on our game for 4, maybe 5 years, our game isn't going to be quite as large as Silksong. I mean, it's a good-sized game, but, we were going to charge $30. I mean, I think people have to be accepting of those things. You have to live life on life's terms. Like, you have to be realistic, and that's my point in this price debate. If your game can't make the cut, people will look elsewhere. Yeah, I'm not saying we treat gaming like a charity and you buy games no matter what, whether they're good or they're bad. That's another thing that always gets twisted in these conversations. Oh, so you're saying that people should just buy a game even if it's bad? No, I've not once said that. It will surely get misrepresented and turned into that by people who couldn't argue their way out of a wet paper bag because they don't understand what I'm saying. So they're commonly showing they don't understand what I'm saying. I have not once said, yeah, go buy games no matter what and support bad games. I've said, don't expect every small studio to deliver a game at the size and the substance of Silksong for $20. Like, just, you cannot expect that. I think some people feel that way because game prices are 70 and 80 and they're thinking the industry needs smaller dev teams to lower the cost of games. Here's what I think is going to happen. Thank you, Sneaky Wolf, for the $5 super chat. He says, I'm sorry, but I can't get my head around how many people in the chat aren't getting it. And then an 8-Bit Dad renewal. 8-Bit Dad with 30 months and 35 months from Lone Wolf. 35 months, 1 month away from 3 years. I say this every often. I love this community, and thank you so much for the content. Guys, you may have seen, we're at 45. We're exactly a 5-bomb away from 50. That's a great setup. Somebody drop the 5-bomb, Twitch or YouTube, whoever does it, you're the one that gets the gifted members. Now listen. You may have seen a lot of YouTubers talking about all the problems on the platform. We are doing our absolute best to not focus on it. I didn't make a video about it. I've mentioned it. I'm aware of it. We're hoping YouTube can fix it. This is one of the reasons that for the 4 years I've been doing this on this channel, I have said, listen, I do this because of your funding. There's a lot of channels now being like, support our Patreon. I do everything right here on YouTube. So click the join button, become a member, you get into extra content. It really does protect your favorite creators from this kind of crap that happens because we are at the mercy of these platforms, okay? Same thing on Purple. When you guys are renewing and priming and gifting, it is quite literally how I'm able to do this full time. So, little plug for that. I know you guys are seeing the issues. We are doing our absolute best to just stay the course. You're going to get a show every day. You're going to get uploads. And along this bumpy ride, we hope they fix the issues. 8-Bit Dad, thank you so much for 35 months. Says double dipped. Dude, the double dip is killer. The double dip is killer. A 5-bomb will be an agent of chaos. It'll get us to the next milestone. Thank you so much. Whichever platform hits that milestone gets a gifted from me. What's the extra content that you have? I do a morning segment. I start off the day in morning coffee. You get in there. I end the day in green room. That's where I kind of plan the next day's show. And I do a Friday night show with my wife. When we hit big stretch goals, sometimes I even do content on the weekends. That's all for paying members. That's not... Gifteds get into those segments as well. But if you pick up your own membership, you're getting into all that stuff. What if the reason it's 20 is because of Xbox? I'm not sure what you mean. Like, because of the Game Pass check? I don't think so. Silksong was indeed worth AAA pricing. Every scene was handcrafted with multiple scenery layers. It's a lot of work. Yeah. Yeah, I remember when we had this debate before they revealed the price. And I said, they could charge $40 for this game. I was like, they could charge $40 for this game. Easily. They thought completely contrary. They're like, no, we're charging 20. Here's the thing that's interesting. The Silksong Price made headlines because nobody was expecting it. That right there is evidence to the fact that, like, you should not expect this from every developer. That just isn't reasonable. Nobody was even expecting this from Silksong. Nobody was expecting these guys to walk out and charge $20 for their game. How come other devs weren't saying, thanks for charging less, they now have more money to buy our game? That's not generally how it works. That's not generally how it works. The 50 plus original soundtrack alone is worth the $20. I wasn't too shocked. Most indies are 20 to 30 range anyway. I think Hades 2 is listed at 30. You felt bad when they revealed the price? Why? The amount of insane hype for this game, it could have been 70. Well, I think 70 would have made people scratch their head. They'd have been like, that seems a little ambitious. Seems like you guys are getting a little too big for your britches there. Like, really? That seems bold, to say the least. That seems bold. You know? It was a nice surprise. Oh, I couldn't believe it. I was like, these guys are gonna burn the internet down with this choice. I knew it was gonna set the world on fire. I knew it. I was like, this is gonna absolutely set the world on fire. Like, this 100% will make folks say, you know, there were people saying this. They were saying, well, I wasn't gonna get the game. It really isn't my kind of game, but for $20, I'll try it. There were people saying that. Like the rest of these games, this will blow over in a few weeks. Well, Minecraft didn't sell those sales all in like the first week. It also didn't launch at a time where there was expectations about indie games. Same with Terraria, Stardew Valley, Hollow Knight, Undertale, Balatro. I don't think this will blow over. I mean, obviously, I think people will stop talking about it, like the price point especially. But here's the thing. Here's why I don't think it'll blow over. We've been talking about this a lot, how we're on the cusp of a resurgence of indie games. We're on the cusp of, you know, indie games starting to be more prevalent, more common. I've talked about this myself. I've said, look, I think you're going to see a lot of AA games and indie games. And I think you're going to see those games help with, and I meant to say this earlier and I interrupted myself, how like I don't think this is going to drive game prices down. What I think it will do though is create a pricing spectrum, a range of pricing, so that you as the consumer do have more choices. You've got games you can buy for 40 or 50 bucks right now. You've got games you can buy for 20 or 30 bucks right now. And then you got the 70s, and then you got the random 80 from Mario Kart, right? So, if we're going to say that indies are having this surge and we're going to get this range of pricing, Silksong being 20 is a potential disruption of like what some studios and games were thinking of charging, because they don't want to be compared to that. Let's look at this from a completely different perspective. The Outer Worlds 2 lowered their price from 80 to 70. I think some of that was because they're sitting in a storefront next to full games. Borderlands, Death Stranding 2, Ghosts of Yotei. None of those games are 80. What in the frick do you think your game is? What, $80? Now, people got all in a tizzy about Mario Kart, but Mario Kart's kind of like, man, shut the frick up. I'm Mario. Be quiet. You know you're going to buy it, right? So Outer Worlds 2 was obviously in a situation where it was likely compared to other games. And people were like, $80? What are you talking about? Borderlands isn't 80. Assassin's Creed wasn't 80. Like, Death Stranding 2 wasn't 80. Yote's not 80. Why is your game 80? Well, that would be the concern of the indie title when it comes to Silksong. Right? Oh, your game's 20? Oh, your game's 30? That would be the concern. I think it's a legitimate concern for developers to be like, oh, we're going to be sitting alongside that game and we're either going to be the same price or more. Man, that could hurt us. There's no obligation on Team Cherry to think about this. This is just being realistic and honest to say this will set expectations. Someone's going to be like, dude, I bought Silksong for $20. It was one of the biggest Metroidvanias I've ever played. Your game's 30 and smaller. Who the frick do you think you are? That will 100% be an attitude and a posture that some gamers take. And they are well within their right to do that. It's their prerogative. It's their money. I'm just saying, I would accept what these developers are saying. I would accept it and say, okay, realistically, we're not going to see games of this size and substance constantly launching for $20. It's not going to be the norm. It isn't. It isn't realistic. Anybody hearing reports that Borderlands 4 is poorly optimized on PC and on 4080s you need frame gen to hit 60? I've not heard that. What if the studio charged 30 to 50 and their sales were 2 to 3 million? I don't know what you're driving at. I don't know how to answer that question. Devs had it easy for years. Time to get their game up. So your summation of the industry is that devs have had it easy for years. Really? I mean, there are other ways to say you don't know what you're talking about. I mean, that's certainly a quick way to let everybody in chat know that you don't know what you're talking about. What in the world led you to the conclusion that developers have had it easy for years? What research did you do to lead you to that conclusion? Yeah, they've had it easy. Yeah. All reports, all analysis has been that like margins are razor thin. It's really easy to fail. It's really easy to get downsized. It's really easy to get, a failed project or a project that's not ready. Like, these are all things that are really easy to happen. You said look at 343. So you think 343 had it easy? How exactly did you come to that conclusion? They had it easy. Half their staff was on a contract, walking out the door every 18 days. They struggled to get the game out the door. They were in a crisis. They had to bring in Joseph Staten to help. Tons of people have been laid off and let go. What about that do you think was easy? You thought that was easy? Get paid for BS? So the fact that they ship a bad game, you're like, yeah, they had it easy. Ghosts of Yote should only cost $40 too, since it has zero chance of being better than Expedition 33. That logic doesn't make any sense. That's just an example. You could swap out Yote with any other AAA game. Well, I don't necessarily agree with what Outer Worlds 2 should be 40 or 50. It has zero chance of being better than Expedition 33. Oh, I see you're responding to him. Let me think through this. Yeah, I don't necessarily think you can use... That's similar to what people are doing with Silksong. You can't be like, Silksong is at this quality for 20. Any indie that's not better than this should be less than 20. Like the one guy said that tweeted, he's like, I'm by myself. I'm a single developer outfit. What am I going to do? Give my game away for free? He's like, I was thinking I was going to charge $20 for my game. 343 was lazy and made crap, in your opinion? Your opinion is as worthless as anything, because we know from what we were told by Jason Schreier in the autopsy of Halo Infinite that that's not true. Your opinion's worthless. It's not based on anything. There's no facts. There's no evidence. There's no research. There's no scathing smoking gun. There's no insider. There's no leaker anywhere that would lead me to believe that 343 was lazy. Like, this is what I'm going to say to you. And I want you to hear this, and I want you to really take this in. You're on the wavelength that it can never be anybody else's fault except for the devs. It can't be Xbox's fault. It can't be Microsoft's fault. It's the devs' fault. It's like, what? Like, Bend. I got another story about Bend for you guys here in a moment. Bend was, they pitch a live service game, they start building a live service game, and then they cancel it. Looking at that situation being like, yeah, that's all Bend's fault. I'm like, no, that was PlayStation's fault. Why would you have a single-player studio building a live service game? What the heck? That was PlayStation's fault. You blame the people at the top. Like, that was a terrible call. 343? How do you mess up Halo? Okay, so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to say something, and if you don't respond to it, you don't get to talk for the rest of the day. That's my new rules of engagement. You either have a conversation with me or you're not allowed to talk. This doesn't work if you're just going to keep ignoring what I say. I'll run around in circles for 25 minutes and get frustrated. I'm not doing that anymore. You're in my house and you're going to play by my rules, okay? I'm going to explain to you how Halo got messed up. And if you don't respond to that, then you don't get to talk for the rest of the day. These are my terms, okay? Here we go. Jason Schreier of Bloomberg did an autopsy on Halo Infinite. Over half of the staff was on a contract, which meant they have to leave every 18 months. This was described as absolutely destructive to the creative process because you constantly had people leaving and you never could have team synergy, vision cohesion, or just in general good production. That's why Halo Infinite launched in the state that it launched. Respond to that. Let's actually have a conversation. Instead of doing this weird flat tire thing where you ignore what I say and just keep running back to your platitudes. You now have new information. What say you? Were they lazy? Was 343 lazy? Or were they mismanaged? Were they literally set up to fail? I agree they messed up. Who? Who messed up? Who? Isn't this more productive? Is this more productive to actually have a conversation instead of running circles? Like, how could you possibly look at 343 and be like, they were lazy? They were literally set up to fail. All of them? Okay. It is my conclusion, it is my estimation, that looking at 343 and calling them lazy and making it as if it was their fault the game turned out the way that it did, I think is absolutely unfounded. We have good, concrete information that team was set up to fail. What's the most recent AAA game that is 50% off of 6 months after it was released? I'm not sure. I don't know what you're asking that for. Phil does get a pass to me. Listen, it's a Microsoft policy. It's been in place for a long time. I believe it was the single greatest causality of 343's problems. You cannot do creative work under those constraints. It's simply impossible. This is what people tend to misunderstand in these situations, okay? They tend to misunderstand this. Taking up for 343 and ridiculing a contract policy is not console warring. It's literally the opposite. It's me taking up for an Xbox studio and saying, you're not setting up this team to have success. I'm taking up for the developers. I'm not demonizing the developers. I'm not attacking the developers. This is not console tribalism. Taking issue with a Microsoft contract policy is the opposite of console tribalism. Do you want to know what console tribalism is? Defending the Xbox brand to the point that it couldn't possibly be Microsoft, it couldn't possibly be the Microsoft policy or the contract policy. It's 343's fault. That is tribalism. That is console warring. That's the strange irony here. That's the strange irony. It's like, if you actually look at what happened, you shouldn't at all come to the conclusion that it was 343's fault. It was completely mismanaged. The team was set up to fail. And taking up for them is the opposite of console warring. It's like, they're an Xbox studio, and I'm like, they should not be treated this way. They shouldn't. Now, that doesn't fall on Phil. Phil doesn't have any control over that. Phil can't go to Microsoft and say, hey, this contract policy has been in place all this time. Can we get around this? I'm sure he probably has. I can't imagine anybody looking at the situation at 343 not thinking that, like, this is a severe problem. We've got to get around this somehow. We've got to get around this. That policy was implemented in 2015. I've been very vocal that 343 has never had the chops because prior to the policy, they couldn't execute either. Halo 4 was not a good game. Okay, hang on a minute. Thank you, Louis Love, with 26 months. Congratulations to my nephew, Jerome, for making his school esports team. Yes, I'm clipping this for him. Yo, Jerome, kill it. And also, tell your uncle he's washed. He can't keep up with you anymore. I hope anytime he plays against you, he feels absolutely showed up. You probably actually run faster than him, too, even though you're into esports. So make sure and tell him that as well, okay? Anyways, let me add that to the total. You're washed, Unc. That's right. You let him know. You let him know. Homie's going to be cramping up the next time you guys play ball. I mean, you know, he's going to push himself. He's going to try and prove it to you. Oh, my gosh. Quality decline in 4. Yeah, I want to react to that. Right? He's getting taller than me. Oh, man, these young bloods out here, brother. I'm 43. I've just given up hope. I can't keep up with them in anything. You know what I mean? You'd have to burn Unc like that. I mean, he used his resub to talk to his nephew. I'm gonna let him know. I'm going to let him know. Here's the thing. Let's say that you're right. That 343 didn't have the chops to do a good Halo. How do you think you're going to get out of that scenario? How? New leadership, new direction, new vision, right? You got to set the team up to improve. You know, you wouldn't go to a sales team that's been underperforming and be like, well, my crack squad, solution here is let's get half of the team to leave every 6 months. We'll just get new blood in here every 6 months. Well, that wouldn't be a very good solution, right? I feel like I'm going to set that team up to fail. They're already not doing great. So to me, if you believe that 343 was in a position to not really deliver greatness, and you're like, man, they really need to improve what they bring to Halo, well, come on. You made it worse. If you're like, well, yeah, now we're going to do this contract policy thing. See, this is the dilemma of all studios. You have a set amount of time and a set amount of expertise, and you got to make that work to get a game out. And if you're disrupting the team aspect of that equation, how could you possibly expect the game to be good? How? I was an Xbox loyalist for years. I refuse to give Microsoft, Phil, or any of those guys a pass. They know what they are doing and what they've done and what it is. Listen, I bet you people expected me to boot up this morning and have a whole hit piece on Game Pass because of Pete Hines and other people taking chunks out of the Game Pass narrative. I don't have any interest. I don't have any interest in talking about that. Now, you want to start talking about devs being lazy? I'll get in the ring and take up for 343 every time. Be like, these guys were set up to fail by Microsoft. That's not console warring. That is not tribalism. That is an assessment of what happened to that team and that project. And if people just keep accepting this reality, like every time a game comes out, it's the devs' fault, devs' fault, devs' fault, devs' fault. Yes, there's always an amount of blame that needs to land on the devs. But if you're setting them up to fail like this, you've got to start assessing, is this going to be a systemic problem? Is this going to be a far-reaching problem? Is any studio under these constraints going to be struggling? I would say yes. 343 sucks. What about Bethesda? What about Turn 10? What about Arcane, the team behind Redfall? Like, are all these teams just bad? Like, what? So they. What do you mean? Like, what, are these teams just bad at what they do? You got long-standing teams out here delivering games that either don't do well or they get shut down. Like what is it? What is the issue? Oh, they're lazy, they suck, they're bad. What? Okay. I guess that's a sweeping one-size-fits-all excuse for like all these studios not doing a good job. Three for three are not lazy, they're just not very good. Yes, they are awful. I don't know. I look at a lot of these studios, and I don't think it is even remotely fair to be like, they're lazy, they suck, they're bad. I just don't think so. I think that's too simplistic. I think there are times where the devs make bad calls or the leadership makes bad calls, and that certainly needs to be, held accountable. But, when I look at a studio like 343 and what they had to work under, I'm like, I cannot possibly act like that's their fault. That just doesn't seem to be reasonable at all. And this is related to the conversation about Silksong. This is 100% related. Because if you've got like a little studio that comes out and says, listen, we've got 20 employees and we've been working on this really great Metroidvania and ours is 30. And there's no way we can do and deliver like the size of Silksong. There's no way we can do that. Like, I feel like we should be applauding honesty, because the alternative is that they just don't say anything and they mislead you, and then you buy the game at 30 and your expectations are falsely set and falsely aligned. Wouldn't you rather have them say that isn't really feasible? That's not really something that we can do. We can't deliver a game that was passionately worked on leisurely for 7 years by 3 guys. We're not going to be able to deliver that. We've been working our game for 4 or 5. We got money. We got a budget. We got to work within the constraints of that. Our game is 30. This is the scope and scale of it. They were left alone to work on the game, never hyped it at all, and they released it when they knew it was done. And a lot of teams just don't have the ability to do that. A game like Silksong is easy to make relative to most games. I said it. I'm not sure why do you think that's a big statement, Eugene? People need to know a dev can run into the ground with bad management and bad direction. Arcane Studio and Obsidian were incredibly talented with their former work, but they're not doing well lately. I've wondered about that. That trend of developers that have seemingly like fallen from grace. And I wonder if they just haven't aged well. Like, what made them popular 15 years ago that you can't just do that again, right? Like you gotta stay moving. You gotta stay agile. I think that's one of the reasons we've seen a resurgence. Maybe not a resurgence, but we've seen these breakout indies and these smaller studios is because they're just more agile. They can bring something to the market maybe a little bit quicker than like some big studio that's like, well, we've always done it this way, so we did it again. And people are like, well, it feels dated, it feels old, whatever. Eugene says, apparently devs are lazy and Silksong is proof. Devs always have to one-up the next game. That's why they fall off. It's like the NFL. The worst team is still full of insane superstar athletes. The first people fired for a bad year are the coaching staff. It doesn't happen in gaming, but it should. it does seem like gaming is set up in a lot of ways to let the primary problem causers just continue to sit high atop the castle. You know? I think that's unfortunate. Like, it's almost like the coaching staff is just always protected. I think that's a bummer. I think that's why small teams, you know, can achieve things like we've seen. They don't have to deal with that. Like, they're not sitting under some corporate guy that failed upward, right? Like, they're not sitting beneath that. Look at Pete Parsons. How long did that take? Right. That blew my mind, Hilly. That homie wrote a blog that was like, yeah, I took the company into the red. And it wasn't followed by a resignation. Pete Parsons was like, hey, y'all. Under my leadership, I took the company into the red. And, I'm not resigning. I'm just explaining to you why I have to fire a lot of people. It's like, wait, what? Wouldn't your salary alone course correct a lot of this? Dear Lord. Wouldn't your salary alone been enough? You know? Golly. The cycle of game dev. Startup makes a good game, gets bought by a bigger company, everyone quits and starts a new company. It's starting to feel that way, isn't it? It's like, all right, it's time to get out. Just letting y'all know. Right, Trill? He's like, I'm just letting y'all know. I'm just keeping it real. Keep it real, son. Can I keep it real? Keep it real, son. You tried to kill my father. No, he's like, listen, I did this, but I'm going to stay. And everybody else is going to pay the consequence. Loto, it sounds like a major contributor is that Bungie is private, so there's no public shareholders to monitor them. Say what? They ain't private. Why do you think during the recent Sony earnings call, somebody was like, oh no, we're restructuring Bungie. They're going to become a PlayStation studio. Hey, Bungie, there's a reckoning coming. And it ain't from me, but I'll watch the fireworks. There's a reckoning coming. Sony's like, I don't know what the frick y'all are doing over here with your knitting classes and your blogs about social issues, and there's not a muzzle big enough. Okay, we'll see about that. We'll see about that. You're under our roof now. You're a PlayStation studio. So, hey, Pete, pack your and get out. I don't know what's coming next. But Pete Parsons is the opening salvo. He's the opening salvo. He's big man number one. Gone. There'll be other heads to roll. There'll be entire things that are going to change that company. You want to bring that, like, West Coast sentimentality to, you're under Japanese ownership, son. You better buckle the frick up. You're in honor shame culture now. You better buckle the frick up. That affects their business philosophy. They need to put up with your stupid nonsense. Jiminy Christmas. Now, again, I think PlayStation saw and assessed the level of talent at the studio. It's why they absorbed so many of them. They have absorbed like 200 some odd people. They didn't want those folks walking. That's why PlayStation spent an extra $1 billion so people wouldn't leave. Sony walked in the room and was like, whose man is this? That's right. Whose man's is this? That TikTok skit. How do white people say, whose man is this? Like, they don't really say that. And they were like, oh, no, get a load of this guy. They finally got there. The one guy say, what do you say? He's like, buddy. He's like, what are you, buddy? No, he's like, that's not it. Get a load of this guy. Yeah. I don't think we really say that, though. I mean, I don't say that. I say, whose man is this? I say that. I don't know, whose man is this? Come get your man. Sony was such a joke. So obsessed with live service game, even after losing hundreds of millions. But they haven't lost hundreds of millions. Listen, you guys have got to see that you keep buying into that. That's not true. I don't know. They did not. If you think that PlayStation spent $400 million on Concord, I can't help you. That would be so traceable with an operational cost. That would just be insane to be like they spent $400 million on Concord. Holy mackerel. Also, the live service debate, to me, I get the hesitancy. I do. But you cannot ignore the money that has come from MLB The Show, Gran Turismo 7, and Helldivers 2. We know that it generates lots of money. Marvel Tokone Fighting Souls is going to be another live service effort from PlayStation that is going to generate a stupid amount of money. Yeah, like, we know that the first round of funding that Firewalk got, we know, like, Jerry Jones was a part of that first round of funding, the first $200 million. This idea, people keep running with that thing. It's like, it's not factual at all. They did not dump $400 million into Concord. Yes, they made a huge mistake. Yes, Herman Holst had no business doing assessment of a game's quality like that. They need other people looking at game's quality. I don't think he's qualified to be looking at live service. I don't think so. That's actually related to my other story today about Bend. That's actually related to my other story for you guys. Let me get a trailer for you here. Jerry Jones is the Cowboy owner? Yes. See, this is what people don't understand. They see a headline and a number and it becomes headcanon, and then you can just repeat it and nobody questions it. Firewalk procured $200 million in funding that had nothing to do with PlayStation. And a part of that first batch of funding, like a bunch of people like paid into it. Jerry Jones was one of the people. Jerry Jones was one of the people that was a part of that first round of funding. So when people are like, oh no, PlayStation spent $400 million, it's like, that is quite literally impossible. It's impossible. Because the money didn't even come from them. It was reported from MLB. Are you saying MLB is lying? I'm not sure what you're talking about. What do you mean, MLB? MLB did best once it became multiplat? I don't think anybody would debate that live service games do better when they're multiplat. Nobody here is debating that. Who here has said anything about that? Oh, you're talking to Joe. I was like, I didn't see anybody here say that. Joe said, sure. Well, you did say did best. You'd have to qualify what you mean by best. I mean, I would argue that it is pretty obvious that multiplat is the way to go for live service. You want to be in as many places as you possibly can. Jerry Jones investing would be a red flag for me. Look at the contract he gave. Yeah, I mean, again, this is more than likely what happened. It was really easy to get investment during COVID because gaming was in an absolute just straight line up. So it was really easy to go to venture capitalist angel investors and say, hey, we're making this game. We're your return on this is practically guaranteed. Look at these growth patterns. Well, what people didn't understand is that 2020 and 2021 were not going to be maintained. And so getting that funding was easy. Getting return on that funding was almost impossible. Bless you, thank you. A ton of people, it isn't just Jerry Jones, a ton of people dipped their toes into gaming in 2020 and 2021. If you just look at the tech sector and the gaming sector alone, the amount of hiring and like team bloat that happened, this is not some weird thing that happened where like Firewalk took these guys for a ride. Everybody was throwing money at gaming. Studios and publishers were throwing money at gaming. Tech sectors were throwing money at getting grow, let's expand. Why? Because it looked like the growth patterns for gaming were insane. It was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Look at the growth patterns. It's like, well, yeah, it was because of an unprecedented event that was keeping people at home. All those trends changed. People started going back to work, going back to the office, going back to school, going back outside. And then gaming went back to 2019 levels, which caused everybody to panic and say, gaming is going to fail. There is a bust coming. No, gaming went back and settled into 2019 levels, which were perfectly fine. And we're seeing growth for platforms. We're seeing growth for games, developers, and publishers. Yes, we're still living in the shadow of 2020 and 2021 overhiring. You're still seeing some layoffs, and you're still seeing some course correction. But returning to 2019 levels is not a cause for like, oh, a doomsday clock on gaming. We're literally going back to, if we go back to 2019 and you continue to see trajectories like this, that could be good. Now, there are trends that are worrying for certain demographics that are buying less and playing less. That could get course corrected with time. I think the younger generations could mature out of mobile gaming and mature into PC and console gaming. We'll have to wait and see. I don't game and watch content the way that I used to when I was a kid. I've matured and I do things differently now. A lot of kids are going to change their gaming habits as they grow and have disposable income. So these things could course correct, or they couldn't. You could see that continue to fall off. So gaming is dead until the next game that you like comes out. Or gaming is dead until the next game that comes out that does incredibly well. Right. Yeah, let's get this Days Gone trailer, so we can do this Days Gone story. Actually, I'm going to need a quick break. I'll be right back before I do this segment. I just realized we're at the 3-hour mark. I need a quick break. I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Okay, I'm back. Ooh. Okay. All right, so let's do this segment about Bend. All right. Okay. Okay. Bend Studio could be gearing up to wasting more of their time again. At least that's what this new job posting may indicate. In case you missed it, Bend was working on a live service game, just like Bluepoint was, and then the project was canceled. Now, a lot of people were very frustrated by this because they were really hoping to see a Days Gone sequel. You have to remember, Days Gone actually didn't do that well when it first released, and so when they pitched it to do a sequel to the upper management of Bend, it was actually rejected. PlayStation was not the one that rejected the sequel. It was, in fact, Bend Studio leadership. Now, in the wake of Concord flopping, seeing Bend and Bluepoint having their live service games canceled, it kind of made sense. It was like, okay, PlayStation's pumping the brakes and saying, maybe we don't know what we're doing. Maybe some of these projects are wrong-headed and aren't going to be in a good place. Well, it seems that Bend may be taking another crack at a multiplayer game. Now, I honestly don't know if this job posting is the smoking gun that means that's what they're doing again, okay? It seems pretty generic. So the job posting is for a, quote, experienced and visionary creative director to help lead a project currently in development. Now, that's key here. This game is in development. So this is something they were already working on that was already greenlit. Now, we know the live service game they were working on was canceled, but we also know there was something else they were working on at the same time. There was a tweet from somebody at Bend where like a contract had been signed. They made it clear that they were working on something else. Now, the one bullet point from this new job posting is what set this all off. It says they need to have, quote, experience with multiplayer game development and design. Now, this could be a game that's going to have multiplayer elements like co-op or PvP. This does not necessarily mean live service. Plenty of games have multiplayer elements in them and are not live service ongoing games with structure and battle pass and added content and ongoing support. One of the reasons that Naughty Dog opted to not ship The Last of Us Online or The Last of Us Factions 2, whatever you want to call it, they were going to have to become a live service studio in order to support it. So I can't see Bend doubling down and saying, no, we're actually going to ship another live service game. Because for the longest time, I have been saying this now, PlayStation wants more live service games, and I get it. They can make a lot of money. They've made a lot of money with Gran Turismo 7 and MLB The Show and Helldivers 2. Marvel Tokone Fighting Souls is probably going to make them a ton of money, and that will definitely be an ongoing live service game. I've even said that I think that game will land on Xbox and the Nintendo Switch 2 in the future because they're going to want as many players as possible, right? If you're going to keep trying to do this, go to studios with a history of live service and have them build the game for you. Don't go to a studio that has a history of making great single-player games and have them take a crack at it. I think that is a terrible idea. Now, in the case of Bend, I think them making a new game that maybe incorporates some multiplayer, maybe some co-op or some PvP, maybe that does well. And then that gives you a reason to then greenlight something further down the line with some multiplayer. Another thing I've said is that you really need an established IP if you're wanting to do live service. It's really hard to suddenly get people excited about a brand new live service game. I've said that, Horizon's got a multiplayer game coming and an MMO coming. That could already have a groundswell of people interested because Horizon's a very popular franchise. It sold like 38 million copies. If they pivoted Bend from just one live service game that they canceled to another one, I would strongly disagree with that. I don't think that's a good use of your talent. I don't think that's a good use of your team, especially when a Days Gone sequel continues to be a giant question mark from fans and the public. The game's aged very well with time. However, I could see them continue to avoid it. There is a bit of a fatigue with games that look like this, right? It's kind of a zombie-esque game, the open world thing. A lot of people are getting fatigued with some of these tropes. So time will tell. Hopefully they've learned to not waste any more studio time on a live service game. They start working on something that actually makes it to the market. Because while it is good to cancel games rather than ship something and just have it flop anyway, studios need some level of output to justify their existence to the folks that are paying those high operating costs. The shareholders might start to take a look at this and say, where's the output from that studio? But that's just what I think. What do you think? So what do you think, chat? I don't necessarily think this is a sign that they're working on a live service game. I don't think so. One job posting somebody familiar with multiplayer systems. I mean, the phrasing is so generic. Like, they need to have experience with multiplayer game development and design. I mean, again, there are so many games that are multiplayer and have multiplayer elements that are not necessarily, live service games. I don't know. I think people may be jumping the gun. I still am going to keep coming back to the same statement where it's like, look, if you want live service, then go to people who do live service. Don't have a single player studio, wind up and take a crack at it. I think that's a terrible idea. Yo, it's good, King Salty. I think that multiplayer is now assumed to be live service. Well, I think this time the assumption is somewhat fair, Eugene, because the assumption is, well, they just recently were doing a live service game. So are you doing another one? Right? Now, this one they said has already been in development. So again, this could be something that wasn't live service. It was just another project that they were working on that they want to bring somebody in to help spearhead it, because they're like, hey, we need somebody to take this over. It's already in production, and we need somebody who's got experience with multiplayer. So I don't know. At the bottom of it, I just keep coming back to the same principle. If you want to do live service, then go the frick ahead, but get teams that are familiar with it. And I don't think Bend is the right team. I just don't think so. You're betting on it being like a multiplayer mode? Yeah, I think that would make way more sense. I think it would make way more sense for it to be some type of a mode or something, instead of like another, oh yeah, it's got to be live service. After what happened with Concord, I just feel like they would be really gun shy in having an inexperienced team ship a live service game. Because I'm not saying that they can't, but the odds, like, you had people that had a history with live service make a live service game that flopped to a degree that is almost never even been seen before. Do we know the studio size at Bend? Please let Concord die already. Well, Bend fluctuates, according to AI, over 100 employees is what AI says. I mean, I don't know. There's a LinkedIn that says somewhere between 50 and 200. I don't think it's a matter of like letting Concord die already. I think it's a matter of like let Concord continue to be instructive. If a team of people with a history of live service can't make it work, why are you thinking that a single player studio can do it? They laid off 33% of their employees. They laid off approximately 40 employees, about 30% of its staff, in June of 2025, following the cancellation of the live service project. I didn't realize it was that many. So if it's about 30%, then that means they had about 130 people. Yeah. That would mean they're now less than 100. That would mean they have now less than 100 people, which means that's maybe why they're hiring for this. Maybe they have 2 projects going. I thought it was Ben's idea to do live service. Well, it was. Like, a lot of people operate under some false assumptions about this. Like, PlayStation walked in the room and made them do this. PlayStation said, we've increased funding for single-player tentpole. We've also increased funding for live service games. So you have the teams pitch games. They pitched a game, started working on it. And then when what happened with Concord happened, PlayStation pumped the brakes on their live service projects and canceled whatever Bend was working on and canceled whatever Bluepoint was working on. This job posting seems to indicate that Ben's already working on something, and whatever they're working on, they need somebody with experience in building out multiplayer games and multiplayer systems. So, yeah, whatever that means. I don't know what that means, but that is the case. Hopefully it's just co-op. Days Gone 2. I mean, I'm not really sure why they have completely avoided Days Gone 2. I mean, I get how the initial pitch got shot down. Like, I think that made sense to me. It was like, oh yeah, that makes perfectly good sense. The game, you know, didn't do very well initially. So you would say no. Like, no, the game did poorly. What are you talking about? Are they cooking anything multiplayer, or is it on pause? We don't know. I mean, Marvel Tokone Fighting Souls is their next big multiplayer live service game that's coming. We know this. That's already been announced. So, but again, we have no idea. I have no idea what their plans are, what they're working on. We didn't know Bend was working on a live service game. We didn't know Blue Point was working on a live service game. We had no idea that was going on. We didn't. That was something we found out in the wake of what happened with Concord. We found out, oh, they were working on that? Like a God of War live service game? Like, what the heck? Why would you be doing that? Which is a perfectly legitimate, a perfectly legitimate question to ask. Like, why would you do that? Why would you do a live service, a live service God of War game? Like, we didn't know those things were even being made until we found out that they were canceled, which I think is part of the reason that a lot of these companies, PlayStation especially, like, I personally think they should, I think that they should be keeping these things under wraps and keep them quiet, because a lot of the times they are going to cancel. Do we know for sure that was Bend? I am fairly certain that this was about as concrete as information gets. I don't think this was like speculation. I feel like this was like multiple corroboration of sources that they did in fact lay people off. They did in fact cancel a live service game. There was leaks about, like, from Bend of the live service game. They were like actual leaks. So I don't know. I don't think this was like some kind of a fluke or something where, like, they just happened to lay people off, and so then people started some rumor that they were working on live service. I think it was generally corroborated and reported that they had a live service game that was canceled, and so did Blue Point. Now, if people got this wrong, I mean, that's always a possibility, but the details were so specific, I highly doubt this was just a bunch of stuff that was just, like, flat out made up. I just don't think so. Okay. Wow. I was trying to do something with my stream, and it just won't let me do it. Speculation of Fair Games was canceled. Triggered the game director leaving the studio. Oh, yeah, that's another thing that's been speculated. Yes. That's another thing that's been speculated, is that, Fair Games has been canceled. And I have said for a very long time that Fair Games has no shot. I was like, that doesn't have a shot. Like, what in the world? A competitive heist game? Like, are you insane? Like, what are you doing? But, that's the world we live in right now, man. Is that, like, I think some of these devs and studios and publishers, I think they, from what Herman Hulst has said, their idea about live service is to have, like, smaller games, smaller pockets of, audiences and stuff. And I just don't know. I don't think now, on one hand, I think it's good to say we need to do something new that nobody else is doing. Like, don't just make a bunch of Fortnites, right? So, a Helldivers. Marvel Tokyo and Fighting Souls is not exactly like what I would say is like earth-shattering. It's a new fighting game. It's a new tag game. Great, right? That's not like highly innovative, but there's market demand for it. So that's the point. I think that's the issue with like a competitive heist game or a game like an extraction game like Marathon. I just don't think there's market demand for the games. I think a couple of years ago I said there's this, for whatever reason, there's this gold rush, there's this emphasis on extraction shooters all of a sudden. I don't know why. I have no idea why there's this emphasis on extraction shooters all of a sudden. I said this is going to be a huge trend. I said they're going to step all over each other. So I don't know. I think people just saw, a landscape that hadn't been dominated yet, so they thought they would start making it. Lenovo Legion Go is very expensive and people aren't happy. Lenovo has responded. For those looking for a more affordable product, we have the Lenovo Go S. Or the Legion Go S, I'm sorry. Well, that's a response. That certainly is a response. Marvel's actually innovating quite a lot. It's going to be the first 4v4 tag fighting game. Well, here's the thing, Sneaky. I'm not saying it's not innovative. I'm saying it's not like a brand new game genre. It's like, well, yeah, it's a fighter. It's a tag fighter. Like those have been in the market before. Maybe that's the ticket, innovating within something that's already there. Because I don't think competitive heist and I don't think extraction. I just don't think either of those genres have a prayer in the market. I don't think there's high demand for either type. I just don't. I feel bad for anybody that is working on these games and, hoping to see a big return. Anybody that misjudged the market like this, you feel bad. People place bets. People make these these predictions about like, oh, if we build this game, it seems like this trend is, growing in popularity, and then it ends up not happening. Is Borderlands 4 going to have a battle pass? I don't think so. Now, Randy Pitchford said no microtransactions. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think it's more that there are no, I think there are microtransactions, but I don't think they're like selling gear or something. I think people got really angry because he qualified what he meant about no microtransactions. I still think there are going to be things you can buy in the game. There was a bit of a controversy with him saying that. Yeah, I think it's well, there's no microtransactions, but you're selling DLC. I don't think a DLC counts as a microtransaction. The term microtransaction signifies it is a small transaction. $5, $8, $10. Now, microtransactions in Fortnite get pretty expensive, so you might say, well, the DLC is basically a microtransaction. I think, historically speaking, people have seen them as different. A microtransaction is like a small item or thing, and a DLC is not a microtransaction. But if people are going to be very pedantic about it and be like, no, that is a microtransaction, okay. And that's there's nothing you can do about that. I mean, if that's what people are going to do. Thank you, Donovan, for 9 months. Silksong currently has a 99 critic score after 17 reviews. Metacritic and OpenCritic have not fully updated yet. If that score holds up, it'll certainly get a Game of the Year nomination. I still don't think it can beat Expedition 33. Even if its score lands higher, I don't think it beats Expedition 33. You can't buy power. PlayStation is either going to too big on niche genres or too small and overcrowded ones. Makes a State of Decay with the Days Gone and ARPG with God of War. Oh, I see what you're saying. You're saying make a State of Decay with Days Gone. I tend to agree with the sentiment of build a game with multiplayer in it. If it's a hit, iterate on that and now you have a fan base to potentially ship a live service game. Again, they were going to try that with The Last of Us, and it might have worked, but they weren't willing to give it the bandwidth that was going to be required. They weren't going to give it the bandwidth that it was required. They were going to literally have to basically turn their studio into a live service studio, and they were not willing to do that. Apparently, the Borderlands 4 Day 1 patch does a lot, but warns that players should have realistic expectations about performance. Older hardware may not provide buttery smooth performance. Sounds like they're anticipating some performance issues for Borderlands. So, speaking of live service, I do have a video right now I'm going to send you guys to about Marathon. We'll be back for Green Room. So I'm going to put a link in chat. Please support this video if you've got the time right now to watch it. It's about the fact that you can get paid to play Marathon. Yes, pay to play. So click the link in chat. I'll redirect you guys. We'll be back in a moment for Green Room if you are a paying member. I'll see you guys over there in the chat for the Marathon video.